Chapter 141, Little Star registered for the senior high school entrance examination. On the 12th of May, Singhai Technologies published a post on Weibo from its official account. The content was an image. It was a joint photo of the boss of Singhai Technologies, the upper management, and hundreds of staff on the technical teams posing with 100,000 silk banners. The 100,000 silk banners, with their bright scarlet color, took up 85% of the entire photo area. There was a line of words on the top of the image. With a haughty tone, it read, 100,000 silk banners and almost 2 million letters of appreciation. Thank you, everyone, for the deep love shown to Singhai Technologies. After this Weibo post was published, the netizens broke out in a frenzy. How is this possible? 100,000 silk banners, a whole 100,000. Do you know the meaning behind this image? It's their comeback. A retaliatory comeback. It's saying, you won't ever dare to look down on the little star learning machine again. My face is stinging from that metaphorical slap. Singhai Technologies is truly amazing. Now, the little star learning machine is selling for $30,000 per unit on the second-hand market. It gets as ridiculous as $50,000. But as long as you have the guts to sell it, someone would buy it for sure. Back then, I was one of those who didn't look very positively on the little star learning machine. But, now, I take my words back. Do you know how the scalpers are currently responding? They're wailing in anguish and sick with regrets. However, there's a mysterious scalper who experimented by hoarding 100 units. He's known as the scalper guru now. The little star learning machine truly is an astonishing epical product. There was an educational expert who used the little star learning machine for a period of time. The knowledge trees come with a logical design, and every video is simple and easy to understand. Not only can the learning machine grasp the shortcomings of each student almost immediately, but it can also automatically adjust the structure and components of the knowledge trees according to the different learning abilities of students. Its level of intelligence is astonishing. We've underestimated Singhai Technologies. The product that they launched was not a learning machine, but an intelligent learning machine. We've neglected the most important word, intelligent. Our imagination was limited by common sense. The little star learning machine definitely cannot be compared to the ordinary learning machine. A popular product that matches up to the WA robot. According to the statistics from the National Education Department, there are a total of 105.64 million primary school students in the country. The sales volume of the little star learning machine could go up to 50 million units at the very least. I wonder when Singhai Technologies will distribute the second batch of the little star learning machine? I can't wait for it to happen. Yes, I won't let it slip through my fingers this time around. At Singhai Technologies, in a meeting with the upper management, the upper management advised Chen Jin collectively to increase the production quantity of the little star learning machine. President Chen, it's a frenzy. Parents are desperate to get their hands on one of the little star learning machines on the market. I've even heard that there was one parent who spent $100,000 to buy one unit. Quickly expand the production capacity, President Chen. We need to produce at least 50 million more units to meet the demand. President Chen, the customer service department has recently received many calls from parents who are urging us to increase the production of the little star learning machine. They say that their children need it urgently. With a pioneer batch of only 5 million units, it's really inadequate to meet the current demand. If we don't expand the production capacity, I'm afraid that the parents would not simply stop at urging us. They might make a complaint against us or report us to the regulatory departments. The back office has recently received many warning letters requesting that we immediately expand the production capacity of the little star learning machine so that their children can seize back their #1 class ranking. President Chen, let's quickly expand the production capacity. The expressions of the upper management were of utmost urgency. Each one of them was rubbing their palms, itching for some action. They changed. The attitudes of the upper management personnel had experienced a 180-degree change collectively. Originally, they did not favor the learning machine project. They did not support it, and even looked at it in a negative light. Now, they strongly favored and supported the learning machine. Their eyes shone with excited gleams. In their minds, they were thinking with some regret. The boss was the boss for a reason. He had a different perspective than them. What he saw and the decisions he made were always one step ahead of them, ultimately achieving a success that was beyond anybody's expectations. For example, the 100,000 silk banners that were sent by the parents. The banners were first stuffed into the storeroom of the back office and then taken out to be hung all across their office walls. What they felt from the banner display was not pride and self-satisfaction, but shame and awkwardness. Their past judgments and behaviors were proven to be wrong. They too had received the metaphorical slap on the face by the product that they had looked down on. What a harsh slap it was! Following which, every single one of them had a change in attitude. They had all transformed into die-hard supporters. In their hearts, the Little Star Learning Machine occupied the same level of importance as the WA robot. For the first time, they realized that seeing high technologies possessed two extremely powerful trump cards. If the production capacity of the Little Star Learning Machine was expanded, they would be able to sell more than 20 million units this year. This would cause the revenues of seeing high technologies to dramatically double. The company would ascend to become one of the top 100 most powerful enterprises in the whole country. Established for 2 years, and in the top 100 most powerful enterprises in the country. Even imagining it caused one to feel excited and inspired. However, Chen Jin did not show a happy expression when faced with their excitement and delirium. On the contrary, his expression was somber, dark, and one that showed how upset he was. As the audience sensed that something was wrong, their smiles congealed on their faces and they looked askance at him. Liang Ying carefully probed, President Chen, what's wrong? Is there a problem? You bunch of idiots! Chen Jin really could not hold it in anymore and vented his anger on the audience. The upper management was dumbfounded by his scolding. Chen Jin continued, It's been almost a year since the Little Star's initial conception and a full 2 months since its launch. Do you still not understand the real application of the Little Star Learning Machine? Do you still not understand what its greatest capabilities are? Did you really think that the Little Star Learning Machine is only a learning machine? Did you really think that the purpose of developing the Little Star Learning Machine is merely to improve the grades of students? I've said this countless times. The Little Star Learning Machine will change the entire world. It will change the educational structure of the entire Z nation. But which one of you have truly believed these words? Oh, what's this expression on your faces? Unhappiness? Are you unwilling to accept my words? Feeling that you are put in a difficult position? I shall let you know the error of your thinking. I'll get Chief Technical Inspector Song Bojun to teach a class on scientific knowledge and you will know what Little Star's greatest capabilities are, and the real meaning behind its birth. Ending his speech, he called Chief Technical Inspector Song Bojun to come to the office. In the upper management's meeting room, Song Bojun used 1 whole hour to explain the series of technical principles behind the creation of the Little Star Learning Machine. He talked about the Smart Learning Program and expounded on what the real capabilities of the learning machine were and how powerful they could be. After the lesson had ended, there was none in the upper management without their mouths agape. They were wide-eyed and unable to make a sound. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Li Yuan Liang mumbled to himself, Our learning machine is actually so powerful? I didn't even know anything about it. It was not only him. The company's CEO, Ling Jundong, lowered his head in shame. He felt so ashamed that he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. He was a self-proclaimed intelligent man who was a prodigy in the field of management. However, when it came to the specifics of technology, he felt that he was an utter idiot now. His ignorant behavior was a total letdown of the trust and importance that President Chen had placed on him. He was like all the other upper management personnel in the room, a moron. Ling Jundong sank into the depths of self-castigation. He had realized his greatest flaw too. He felt that he really needed to further educate himself on certain topics. Chen Jin announced one last bit of news that caused them to be struck dumb with amazement yet again. I've gotten someone to submit the application to the Department of Education for Little Star First Gen to participate in the nationwide senior high school entrance examination on the 6th of June. Chapter 142, Discussion by the Department of Education. He wanted the Little Star Learning Machine to participate in the nationwide senior high school entrance examination. But he could not achieve that simply by getting his staff to go to the capital and submit the application to the Department of Education. He would only be booted out as a loony. Chen Jin used his connections with the top officials in the country. He got his retired grandfather, He Chong-ho, to help. His grandfather had held the position of deputy mayor of Shanghai City. He would bring the Little Star Learning Machine with him all over the country as he sought an audience with old colleagues and senior leaders with greater power. He would demonstrate Little Star's function and elaborate on its huge significance. The old man was nearly 80 years old. Chen Jin felt terrible that he had to travel all over the country at his age. But, the old fellow was willing and filled with energy. For the following 2 months, he had used nearly all the connections that could be used. He even astonished a few of the highly influential politicians. Thus, he had gathered a tremendous force behind him. It was child's play to make use of this force to seek an audience with some people and attract a high level of attention from the Department of Education. After a proper greeting with the relevant officials, Shanghai Technologies was able to send their technicians with the Little Star learning machine to the officials at the Department of Education without any trouble. However, all the educational officials held a meeting prior in order to discuss this matter in depth. Did the old party leaders listen to this nonsense by some random person? They said that a particular learning machine can change the fate of the nation and speed up the rise of our nation, so we have prioritized it and provided all the assistance it needs. They make it sound like the dolly pill that claims to be a panacea. What nonsense! Watch what you say. The man beside him glared harshly, don't think that you are the smartest. Out of all your predecessors, there is none who is dumber than you, and none who can be easily taken in by nonsense. There could really be something extraordinary about that learning machine. But it's impossible for it to be that amazing. A learning machine with the capabilities of a high schooler, that can complete all the questions in the exam and get a perfect grade. What would that mean? That would mean that our educational system is about to experience an upheaval of changes. Impossible. I refuse to believe that such a technological product exists. Haven't you heard of the Little Star learning machine that recently became the national sensation? This learning machine is wildly popular, its functions are extremely powerful. An official smiled chillingly. That just means that it has above-average functions. It's definitely not at a level where it can participate in the senior high school entrance examination. The junior high school syllabus is very complex. There are language, English, and other humanities subjects which require a stronger reading and comprehension ability. Moreover, does it dare to carelessly touch upon topics like history and governance? If it gives the wrong answers with regards to those topics or mentions sensitive issues, we'll just seal the product from the market and kill it off. There are no benefits to further discussions. We can only believe it when we see it. On the 18th of May, at the Department of Education, the technicians from Shanghai Technologies faced the top officials from the department, including Department Chief Yuan, Department Deputy Chief Liu, and other officials. The technicians took out the Little Star learning machine. According to the agreed arrangements, the department's civil officers gave out more than 10 sets of fresh exam papers. There were papers on language, arithmetic, English, chemistry, physics, biology, geography, history, governance. A total of 9 subjects. Before the test began, team leader Song Bojun raised his hand and said to the officials, party leaders, the functions of the Little Star learning machines are limited. It is unable to learn history and governance. Please remove the papers for these 2 topics. Little Star does not have the ability to do these 2 subjects. All the officials in attendance were stunned. The official who was wearing a cold smile felt his expression slipping away. He could not help but silently admire, a smart company, it actually knows how to avoid sensitive issues. Department Chief Yuan asked, you will only do 7 subjects. Song Bojun nodded. We are only able to solve questions that adhere to science and logic. They must be objective and definite. We cannot solve questions that are too subjective and have no one standard answer. Okay, exclude the papers on history and governance. Seeming as if he was in profound thought, Department Chief Yuan nodded. Preparations were completed. The test began. 7 Little Star learning machines faced off with test papers on 7 subjects. They started scanning and answering. 20 sets of test papers were prepared for each individual subject. An ordinary student would take at least 1 day to finish these 20 papers. However, the Little Star learning machine used less than 2 hours to complete all the questions in each collection of papers. It used an average of 5 to 6 minutes to complete 1 paper. It was able to answer at a faster speed for certain memory-based questions on language, English, and geography. Hence, it used an average of 4 minutes to complete each of those papers. When it came to answering questions that required memorization and logic, such as chemistry and biology, its answering speed was moderate. It used an average of 5 minutes to complete each of those papers. It answered the slowest for questions that were more logic-based, such as arithmetic and physics, with an average of more than 6 minutes taken to complete each of those papers. Following which, the staff in the Department of Education proceeded to check the answers given with the correct answers. Results were quickly announced. The total number of points one could get for each of the test papers was 100. The results of the little star learning machine was: average score for language is 55 points, 78 for English, and 100 for geography. Average score for chemistry is 100, and 100 for biology too. The average scores for arithmetic and physics are also 100. The sum total of the combined averages from the 7 subjects is 633. For an overwhelming majority of junior high schoolers across the provinces, they can totally gain admittance into a top senior high school with this result. The statistician said with a trembling voice, "Now, this is achieved by a learning machine." And the results were achieved with the exclusion of 2 subjects, language composition and English composition. This learning machine, the statistician was speechless, he had no idea how to evaluate this. The officials present had sunk into a state of collective shock. Their brains were whirring at crazy speeds. They were all hypothesizing about the significance and consequences that this learning machine would bring to the junior high schoolers in Z country. Various thoughts resounded in their minds. Market the product. We should support market distribution. This learning machine can greatly raise the grades of high schoolers. In turn, it will greatly raise the standard and quality of our country's basic education. It will ascend to a whole new league. In the future, huge numbers of genius students will appear in Z country. We will be able to cultivate the growth of more big talents. This learning machine is too powerful. Countless training institutes will collapse. Countless schemes of supplementary lessons will be cancelled. Students' burdens will be significantly lightened, but the average earnings of educational professionals will decrease. Many businesses in the education sector will soon face a cold winter and be sunk into difficult circumstances. The unemployment rate will increase significantly. Hence, the distribution of this learning machine will definitely suffer setbacks from all sides. It will face all sorts of obstacles. We must seal it off and kill it. It will turn the current education structure upside down. It will be the dominant player in the educational market that is worth trillions. The little star learning machine intends to take this entire pie for itself. This cannot be allowed. The national treasury would receive much less revenue from taxes. Economic vitality will be significantly reduced. We should support this learning machine. But, it has to be regulated by the government. The profits that it can intercept from incumbent players are too great. Seeing High Technologies wants to devour this meal by itself. Nobody will allow this. This type of learning machine might even cause an increase in the rate of dropouts, as some students would refuse to finish their compulsory education in school. This would disrupt national planning. The imagination of the officials was running amok. Their expressions reflected the ups and downs of their thoughts. At this point, an official mumbled something in a low voice. Like a stone shattering a glass wall, he voiced the one fact that nobody dared to say: since this learning machine is able to achieve such good results, will there be a need for students to study so diligently in the future? Chapter 143, Approval. That one statement startled everyone who had been sunk in their own thoughts. All the officials in attendance reacted to this news as they realized this serious problem. A robot that did better than humans. What would be the outcome? A top swordsman who had trained in the art of swordplay for decades had now suddenly come face to face with a gun. What would happen next? The same product. The factories had a manufacturing efficiency rate of 100. The human hand had a manufacturing efficiency rate of 1. What would people choose? The junior high schoolers had studied hard, even burning the midnight oil, going for countless supplementary lessons, signing up for various training classes and buying countless study materials. They had invested huge portions of their time and money just to be admitted into a top senior high school. But, now, there was a learning machine that could easily replicate the results that they could only achieve by sacrificing so much over the past few years. Then, what was the purpose of studying so diligently? Of course, learning was still extremely important. Nobody could bear the consequences of not learning. However, faced with the existence of the little star learning machine, the spoon-feeding style of the present educational system that pushed students to only focus on achieving good grades would naturally suffer a great setback. When a man-made machine could surpass humans in taking exams, when it could also be admitted into a top school, should its application be restricted? Should it be sealed off from society and eliminated in order to prevent it from causing social unrest? Or should it be allowed to naturally progress according to market trends? Should they harness the full capabilities of the man-made machine and apply it on a large-scale basis? Should they use it as a support for the rapid ascension of the human race, where ultimately, everyone would be a top scholar, a genius? and allow it to complete the disruptive reformation of the education system at the same time? With the birth of the Little Star Learning Machine, two choices and their paths were presented to Z country's educational decision-makers. Department Chief Yuan said, Chief Inspector Song, the Department of Education has no authority to reject or approve the Little Star Learning Machine participating in the senior high school entrance exam. This is a very serious matter. We have to report this to the higher-ups. We can only give you an answer after we receive a memorandum. Please be patient. Okay. Song Bojun nodded. We are willing to wait. On the afternoon of that very same day, Song Bojun did not have to wait long. The feedback provided by Department Chief Yuan reflected the memorandum from the higher-ups. Excluding 3 provinces in the west, the Little Star Learning Machine is allowed to participate in the senior high school entrance exam across 28 provinces in an environment where comprehensive measures are taken to prevent leakage of confidentiality. This is great. It means that the top government officials view this matter in a very important light. I believe that this test will cause a huge sensation within the country. The team members from Singhai Technologies were unbearably excited. They quickly reported this good news to headquarters. However, Singhai Technologies was currently mired in a sorry situation. The situation had exploded. Seeing how Singhai Technologies was still delaying the release of the second batch of Little Star Learning Machines at this late stage, the parents were in a frenzy. They were panicking. Various inquiries came through the phone and complaint letters flooded the company. Where's the Little Star Learning Machine? Why are you still not producing the Little Star? My child needs to use it immediately. My child had always been the top in his class. He had never been in the second place. But now his class ranking has dropped to number 5. He has lost nearly all of his confidence. If you don't provide a Little Star Learning Machine for my child, you'll be his ruin. This is the last warning. I give you 3 days. My son has to have the Little Star Learning Machine. Or else, don't blame me for being ruthless. Singhai Technologies, just what are you doing? You clearly have such a good product, but you're hoarding it from the market. Are you trying to make more money? Okay, I'll give you $100,000. Send a Little Star Learning Machine to my child immediately. Faced with the parents' warnings and angry rebukes, the customer service officers of Singhai Technologies tried to appease them with sincere words. They patiently explained that the Little Star Learning Machine was awaiting government approval. Once it had been approved, they would immediately mass-produce the Little Star Learning Machine in massive lots. Parents, please wait for a bit longer. But the explanations from the customer service officers were futile. The parents wanted only one thing: to immediately purchase a Little Star Learning Machine. Moreover, there were only 10 days left in the month of May, and about a month left till the junior high school entrance examination. In order to get their children, who were in primary school 6th grade, to be admitted into a better junior high school, many of the parents banded together in private and organized a big activity. More than 3,000 parents had come from all over the country to converge outside Singhai Technologies headquarters. Holding up their long banners, they loudly protested. Singhai Technologies, start producing the Little Star Learning Machine right now. Singhai Technologies, return my son's number 1 class ranking. If I can't get a Little Star Learning Machine today, I'll stay here, I won't leave. Singhai Technologies, for my child's grades, I'll fight you to the death. You clearly have a product, but you're hiding it from the market. Down with this cheating company. Singhai Technologies is a scammer. Release all the Little Star Learning Machines that you've been hiding. Zhao Taizu was disguised as an ordinary parent amongst the procession of demonstrators. He gathered the full power of his vocal cords and shouted with all his might. That was right. Zhao Taizu could not hold off his impatience any longer. Besides him, there were about 500 plus people in the procession who were his colleagues. As for this activity, there was evidence of their private collusion and scheming. This entire activity was organized by a team. However, Zhao Taizu and his team were not afraid. They were simply representing the parents in their protestations by holding up some long banners and shouting a few times at Singhai Technologies. Things would not go out of control. However, they had never imagined that the parents would be so enthusiastic. In less than half a day, almost 3,000 parents had signed up for the event. The group consolidation on WeChat was still ongoing, and tens of thousands more parents had responded. Many more parents were hurrying on their way to the entrance of Singhai Technologies. Zhao Taizu and his colleagues started to become fearful. However, the event had progressed to a point that was way past their control. Hurry and give over the little star learning machine. Xinghai Technologies, please do not dismiss the cries of the parents. Aren't you a company with a conscience? Why don't you check in with your conscience now? Zhao Taizu shouted a few more times into the air and turned round. Oh my god! It was a dense crowd. The number of parents who had congregated on the scene had reached 5,000. Oh no! This is out of control. Scatter, my brothers, quickly scatter. As Zhao Taizu saw that the situation was going downhill, he blended into the crowds with his team and they quickly made their escape. However, their abnormal behavior had been captured on the cameras. They were all arrested the next day, handcuffed, and brought into the police station. Their crimes were instigating an illegal gathering, causing many police officers and security guards to be injured in the jostle. Some of the injured had narrowly missed becoming involved in a stampeding accident. The nature of the crimes was especially wicked. Zhao Taizu and many others would be facing a fixed term of imprisonment ranging from 3 to 5 years. After this incident, Xinghai Technologies had no choice but to organize a news conference explaining the reasons for not producing more little star learning machines. The video of the news conference was distributed via WeChat groups. In an extremely exaggerated tone, the company elaborated on the huge significance of the little star learning machine. It would be relevant to the overarching national plan for the next 1,000 years. It would meet with many unimaginable obstacles as it could damage the profits of countless people and organizations. Hence, they needed more time before officially mass-producing it. The parents believed this explanation and their emotions settled down for the time being. On the 20th of May, a Weibo post from Xinghai Technologies' official account attracted the attention of all netizens. After the approval granted by the Department of Education, the Little Star learning machine will be participating in the senior high school entrance examination held on the 6th of June across 28 provinces. Please look forward to its performance. Chapter 144, A Shockwave in Science and Tech Circles. The principle behind the Little Star learning machine's ability to rapidly solve questions laid in its two brains. One was the primary brain of knowledge that was composed of more than 10,000 TB of data. It was stored in the server port. The other was the secondary brain of logic that was integrated into the AI chip of the learning machine. When the little star scanned a question, the secondary brain of logic in the AI chip would operate at rapid speeds to determine the question type before comparing it with the primary brain of knowledge in the server port. It would then search for the answer in the big brain and get the strategies needed to solve the question. If it was a question based on memorization, it simply had to conduct an intelligent search to find the standard answer. If it was a question based on logic, the solving process would be slightly more complex. It would first undertake a judgment process. If it was a question that was already stored in the knowledge brain, the answer would be provided rapidly. If it was an entirely new question, the server and the local AI chip would jointly derive and compute the correct answer. If a particular question type had a typical form, the server would save it to enrich the knowledge brain, thus making it more powerful. Theoretically speaking, the knowledge brain could become more powerful as the number of little star learning machine users increased. That was the problem: could an intelligent learning machine with the potential to change the structure and style of education in Z country and also influence the profits of countless entities, be successfully marketed? In other words, could it remain in the hands of Xinghai Technologies? Education was a nation's capital. Was there any country that would place education, one of its very foundation, in the hands of a private company? Would any country place it in the hands of an individual? In the meeting's discussions, Li Yuanliang had a sudden realization. President Chen, I understand why you did not mass-produce the little star learning machine on a larger scale. This is a double-edged sword, one that could allow us to take the entire education market for ourselves. The parents will be happy if we mass-produce the little star on a larger scale. But other educational-related organizations will hate our guts. Cutting off their source of profits is akin to killing their parents. This would become a deadly feud. You can imagine their responses. However, Ho Xiaofeng shook his head. I don't agree with this reasoning. In this world, the strong will survive and the weak will be eliminated. This is a timeless law. Our little star is strong. The structure composed of training institutions and organizations providing supplementary lessons should naturally go along with the market flow and be eliminated. Parents and students will vote with their money. They won't give business to the eliminated out of pity. This kind of elimination is necessary. No matter how great their resources are, they can't ever dream of controlling the parents' choices. Therefore, President Chen, I feel that your thinking is still somewhat conservative. We should first produce another 100 million units of Little Star, then we wait and see what happens. We take control of the entire market. The parents will be satisfied and the students' grades will be raised. Those organizations whose profits have been hurt can stop dreaming about making a single cent. Because as compared to us, they are the weak. Faced with our full-scale attack, weak entities that are so far beneath us will have no other choice besides death. Another upper management personnel agreed, Manager Ho is right. President, you're too conservative. As the strong, why do we have to be afraid of the weak? It's necessary for them to be eliminated. It's a fate that they cannot change. President Chen, there's no need to show mercy. However, Chen Jin shook his head. His gaze was dark and endless. With a low voice, he said, my focus has never been on the weak. What I'm worried about are not any obstacles in the business world. Shanghai Technologies will never be afraid of any business competition. But, you have to know that the most influential people in Z country are never the businessmen. Ling Jundong immediately understood. What you're worried about is, the government. Yes. Chen Jin nodded. Frankly speaking, my original intention in making the learning machine product was to transform the current state of education in Z country. I hoped that many more children would become talents that benefit our society. At the same time, I could also profit from the educational market. But, this market is not based on free competition. There is a high level of government interference. The market is also a representation of the educational strategy adopted by the government that heavily favors the sciences. It is a market that cannot be carelessly infringed upon. I maintained my prudence and self-control by releasing only 5 million units of Little Star to test the waters. I don't want to increase its impact on the market and damage the current structure. At the same time, it was for self-protection. We have to protect our profits. Recently, I've seen opinions by many educational professionals on the internet. The opinions can be summed up in this phrase, surrender it to the government. They want us to surrender the technology behind the Little Star learning machine to the government. Chen Jin chuckled. Haha, the product that we've spent tens of billions of dollars to develop and the result of the efforts of thousands of development technicians has actually become a cultural relic that we have to surrender in some experts' views. I have to say, dream on. They are totally unaware that the learning machine is merely a product for me to test the waters. If it works, Z country will be transformed, accelerating the rise of our nation. If it doesn't work, we'll never touch the education market again. We'll go back to how we were before the learning machine was ever produced. It'll be like it never happened. Shanghai Technologies will then continue to only focus on making progress in the free sectors for the businessmen. The audience finally understood the boss's meaning. So, this was all a test. In other words, this was a strategy that would allow the user to advance or retreat. He would be in absolute control of making the first move. This allowed the company to avoid huge potential losses, as well as thwarting the unrealistic fantasies of certain forces. Brilliant. It was really brilliant. The audience could only sigh in silent admiration with regards to the unknown depths in the mind of the young boss. News about Little Star's impending participation in the National Senior High School entrance exam across 28 provinces had been announced. Enthusiastic responses peppered the internet. Damn, the Little Star can even take part in the entrance exam. Hey, so the learning machine can also be used in this way. Why hadn't I thought of that before? Can other learning machines participate in the entrance exam? The questions in the entrance exam are complex and highly changeable. There are many new questions. It's already pretty good if the learning machine can even correctly answer some of the questions. As compared to netizens with only a smattering of scientific knowledge, the Weibo comment by Shanghai Technologies was akin to dropping a bombshell on the science and tech circles in Z country. Scientists in Z country who understood the real significance behind this news were unbearably excited. Their collective attention was placed on the Little Star learning machine, as well as its creator, Shanghai Technologies. How is this possible? How is the intelligent learning program in the Little Star able to achieve such a high level of intelligence where it can even comprehend content in the textbooks? AlphaGo, developed by the DeepMind company, was only able to achieve its peak in the game of Go. And the intelligent learning program developed by Shanghai Technologies is an all-around learning program equivalent to 100,000 AlphaGos. A tech company that was established for less than 2 years actually seeks to transform the entire Z country and turn our education system upside down. Hi everyone, I am Yuan Lanfan. You are watching this week's episode from the program The Original in Science and Technology. Welcome. Recently, news has broken out about the Little Star learning machine from High Technologies. It was announced that it will take part in the upcoming senior high school entrance exam. After this news was announced, many audience members privately messaged me about the significance of this matter, asking if its dramatic portrayal in the news media was exaggerated and if the scientists' evaluation of the learning machine was too good to be true. Isn't it just an ordinary learning machine? Now, I have to tell everyone, it is not exaggerated in the slightest. Even some of the news with attention-catching headlines are not suitably shocking enough. I think it's more appropriate to use the word shocking 3 times. Say, we would have named the title of this episode like this: Shocking. 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 The significance of the Little Star learning machine. A famous scholar in the field of popular science on Bilibili, Professor Yuan Feng, dedicated 3 full weeks of episodes to explain, in layman's terms, the huge significance that Little Star represented for Z country. Throughout the episodes, his tone was extremely excited about his topic. He even received an unlocked Little Star learning machine loaded with the junior high school syllabus. With this, he was able to do a 100-minute live video stream. In the live stream, he had Little Star complete more than 10 mock senior high school entrance exam papers. The highest number of online audiences for this live stream was over 10 million, almost causing the server of Bilibili to crash. After this live stream, the Little Star learning machine caused a nationwide sensation and attracted a high level of attention from foreign media and scientific circles. In the midst of increasing scrutiny and even more intense discussions, the National Senior High School Entrance Exam was about to be held on the 6th of June. Chapter 145, the Senior High School Entrance Exam that was the focus everyone's attention. On the 6th of June, the Senior High School Entrance Exam was about to take place. It was a selection process for junior high schoolers who were about to enter their senior year, and it was an exam that happened only once a year. It was an extremely important day for the parents of students in their final grade of junior high school. The Senior High School Entrance Exam was finally here. However, the exam this year was somewhat different from the exams of past years. The entrance exam this year had attracted much more attention. Today, in the country, there would be about 100 million netizens with a definite scientific knowledge closely watching the official live streaming platform, focusing on each and every update that came with the latest feed. Today was also a grand gathering for scientists all over the nation. All scientists squeezed out whatever little bit of time they could and put aside their work temporarily. They were filled with anticipation as they focused on one thing: the Little Star learning machine's participation in the entrance exam. At 9 a.m. sharp, the first exam, language, began. At the third entrance exam venue in Shanghai City, there was a door that was tightly locked. Lu Xinyu gripped the automatic rifle in his hands as he scanned his surroundings, on high alert. He was a member of the Armed Special Police Force. He was 28 and had been in the force for 8 years. He had participated in 6 escort missions for the safe delivery of the entrance exam papers. It had been a success every time. However, his current mission was somewhat different. Just before the start of the exam, he and his comrades carried a heavy strongbox into this special classroom. Thereafter, they immediately left and locked the door. A special anti-cheating interference vehicle was parked beside the classroom, and its interference function was turned up to the highest level. The bell rang at 11:30 a.m., signaling the end of the first language exam session. The vast number of third-grade junior high schoolers had finished their exam and were exiting the exam venue in droves. The interference vehicle stopped its work. The team leader of the special police force in charge of carrying out this mission took out his key and unlocked the door to the classroom. He said to the 2 technicians from High Technologies who were waiting at the door, "Quickly take that thing in for the exam. You are given a total of 10 minutes. You have to hand in the answers at 11:40 am." The time given was extremely tight. It took the Special Forces team leader 1 minute to open the classroom door, another minute to open the safe box. Tearing open the seal strip and taking out the exam papers required at least another minute. They were delayed for a total of 3 minutes. Therefore, they realistically only had 7 minutes to complete the exam. However, the 2 technicians from High Technologies were not even feeling a bit of panic. After taking out Little Star, they quickly scanned the papers. They finished the exam in less than 5 minutes and submitted the answers. Then, they left the venue. The exam inspector took away the learning machine. Another 20 minutes passed. The answer sheet completed by Little Star was published on the live streaming platform. The teacher in charge of marking the exam immediately calculated the results on the spot. Soon, the exam results of the Little Star learning machine was ready. Out of a total of 120 points, it only got 65 points. As for the language test from the other 27 provinces, the results of Little Star was ordinary. Out of 120 points, its highest score was 72 points and its lowest score was 58 points. Netizens expressed their disappointment. Isn't it extremely intelligent? It can't even achieve a passing grade. And they call this a learning machine? They sang its praises to high heavens. It can't even pass and they dare to shamelessly boast about transforming Z country's education structure. Please get the situation right before ranting. Little Star got a low score for language because it didn't write the essay, which comprises 40 points. As for the remaining questions, some questions that test reading and comprehension skills require Little Star to elaborate on its thoughts and write down its feelings and opinions about the text. Sorry, these are purely subjective questions. Humans may not even excel in these questions, much less Little Star. If it gets about half of the points, it means that it got all the foundational questions right. Speaking of the thoughts in my mind, I'm reminded of a tree beside Luxun's door. It's just a few damn words, yet someone could write thousands of words in appreciation. It's even clear and logical from beginning to end. Everyone had to admit defeat. But, I just want to say F you to the person who came up with this type of question. They have shit in their brains. It's completely normal that Little Star is unable to answer this question. An overwhelming majority of netizens expressed understanding and generosity towards Little Star's lousy start in the language exam. The results of Little Star in the arithmetic exam in the afternoon amazed everyone. A perfect score. 28 perfect scores. No matter how difficult the toughest questions were in some of the province's papers, the Little Star learning machine could provide the correct answer within 30 seconds. Its rate of accuracy was 100%. Netizens expressed their awe. I really want to see the expressions on the teachers who came up with those math questions. Are they very disappointed? As someone who's terrible at math, I really want to have a Little Star learning machine now. The Little Star learning machine is so terrifying. I finally understand the significance behind this learning machine. It can put an end to all arithmetic exams because it has fully conquered the subject. With the possession of a Little Star learning machine, you will become the king of all arithmetic exams. The next part of the entrance exam continued on the 7th of June. Chemistry and physics exams were held in the morning. They had a total of 200 combined points. After this exam session, it was revealed that Little Star, again, got perfect scores for all 28 test papers. The responses from netizens became even more enthusiastic, and the scientists' excitement was through the roof. Little Star's results for the English exam on the afternoon of the 7th was similar to that of the language exam. It did not do very well. Especially when it came to listening and reading comprehension, it frequently could not follow the turns in conversations and was unable to understand deeper meanings. Its behavior was like someone who was intellectually disabled, meaning that its intelligence was still not up to par. For the English exam papers, it only got an average of 67 points out of 100. However, there was a question on grammar in the English paper from Shaanxi province that caused a debate between many English experts. They felt that the standard answer provided might not be the only one. Under certain circumstances, the answers provided by Little Star were correct too. There was an inherent problem with the question. After discussions with many parties, the Department of Education made a final decision. The question had more than one answer, so Little Star was correct too. Many exam takers from Shaanxi rejoiced. The answer I chose was the same as Little Star's. I also feel that it's the right answer. Thank you Little Star for getting this 1 point back for me. Although it's only 1 point, it means that I've moved up at least 100 ranks. Yet, if not for Little Star, I would have lost this point. Who knows, I could have missed going to a top senior high school without this point. On the 8th of June, the last day of the entrance exam, not only did Little Star achieve perfect scores for the last exams of biology and geography, it even discovered a mistake in one of the papers. There was a question in the biology paper from Phuket province that was worth 3 points. The standard answer provided was actually wrong. The Little Star learning machine realized this mistake and gave the correct answer. Countless biology teachers also agreed that the standard answer for that question was wrong. The teacher who set that particular question from the Phuket province received a harsh reprimand. What happened? You can't even do a question that you yourself have set. It's 3 points. You've nearly deducted these points from tens of thousands of students and impacted their rankings. Can you be more attentive when you're making the questions? Can you hire some biology teachers who are more professional? Finally, the national senior high school entrance exam across the provinces had officially ended. It was not necessary to talk about the results of Little Star again. Countless people had paid a high level of attention to its exam results. In any case, it could get into a top senior high school at the very least. Its prowess was especially apparent when solving a problem that had answers that were clearly divergent or when it noticed some very obvious errors in the questions. Nobody would doubt its ability again. Some of the answers provided by the Little Star learning machine were even called the most authoritative or the most fitting. It was more reliable than the teachers who set the questions. At this point, the already wildly popular Little Star learning machine had become a worldwide phenomenon. Not only was it a national sensation, but it was also a global sensation. Chapter 146, Authorize the Country. On the 9th of June, the second day after the midterm examinations, Chen Jin's avatar led a portion of the company's executives to King's City. They were attending an important meeting held by the Ministry of Education. Or actually a negotiation, so to speak. A negotiation on the Little Star learning machine. In all honesty, this negotiation was very laborious. When the negotiation was at a stalemate, even a senior-level leader came and instilled his ideologies upon him. But Chen Jin's stand did not sway by even an inch. Xinghai Technology's benefits must be fully assured. The request of nationalizing the learning machine by some experts in the education field was firmly rebuffed. Since you said that your company spent almost tens of billions of dollars on developing the Little Star learning machine, okay then, the country will compensate you 20 billion, a two-fold compensation, is that enough? What an expert you are, 20 billion. Do you see Xinghai Technologies as beggars? The product value of the Little Star learning machine is over 2 trillion. You want to buy this technology? Sure, take out 2 trillion then, Chen Jin said with a sarcastic grin. An expert was disgusted by him to the extent that he wanted to vomit blood. 2 trillion, are you going insane thinking about money? Concerning the future of our nation, concerning a product that represents the fate of our nation, and what you can think of is only money. You disappoint us. Do you have some misconceptions towards earning money? Xinghai Technologies spent tens of billions to develop this product. If it's not for earning money, what do you suggest? Charity? Thank goodness you are not an entrepreneur. If you were to manage a company, it would collapse within just a few days. Chen Jin shook his head. The purpose behind the establishment of each and every company is the same. The utmost priority will be earning money. Changing the world, the cause of feelings, the cause of righteousness, all of these are just stories for children. We are all adults here, please communicate the adult way. What is it that you want? Questioned another expert. I don't want anything. I'm the one that should be asking, what do you want? You want the Little Star learning machine? Sure, take out your money, I'll give you a discount. You want its technology? Sure, take out your money, please talk to me in commercial definitions. Money, 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 have you lost yourself in money? Can't you contribute to your country and your people? Said another expert. Chen Jin stood up. I'm sorry, this conversation is not going anywhere. As long as this expert is around, I refuse to talk anymore. Like a chicken and a duck talk and howl to the moon, we literally can't communicate with each other. He left the conference room. The experts looked at each other. The one expert's face turned red from agitation and anger. The next day, Chen Jin once again stepped foot into the conference room. He realized that the expert from the day before was gone. The head representative of the negotiation was also swapped to a kind-looking elderly man. Mr. Chen, I can fully understand what you mean. We are now in an era of commodity economy, so there are no flaws in your logic. Besides, your company is already involved in the high-tech business and already contributing to our nation's technological advancements. Every single cent you earn is clean money, we can't point our fingers at you in any way. It's just that, the Little Star learning machine had too big of an impact towards the country. It completely flipped our educational system. We cannot make any mistakes in the education of our next generation. I know that the knowledge checkpoints in the Little Star learning machine are mainly focused on natural science, and it is very helpful for science students. It also did not touch on any sensitive topics. This indicates that you are very smart, and Xinghai Technologies is a very wise company to put all these problems into account. The elderly man continued, however, it is impossible for the country to let just one company monopolize a product such as this. The purpose behind the existence of the Ministry of Education is to supervise and regulate and to make sure that no problem arises. The best way of regulation in this case is to nationalize this product and leave it in the hands of experts in the educational field. Just like transportation, power generation, and military, the importance of the Little Star learning machine has already escalated to the same height as these fields. The country will definitely provide a certain amount of financial compensation. Singhai Technologies will also receive great support from the country. I, on behalf of the country, guarantee you, you will not get the short end of the stick. The officer gave his warm and sincere advice. But Chen Jin still shook his head. It's not impossible for you to nationalize this product. I'll make a concession, 500 billion for buyout. I'll give you the Little Star learning machine as well as a copy of its technical documents. This is my bottom line. I will not concede further. Please do not think that this is expensive. It is said that the country injects several trillions of funds in the educational field annually. My request is completely not out of scale. In business development, we need profit. Singhai Technologies made a product worth several trillions in value, and now we are willing to sell it at 500 billion. I do not think that we are taking any advantage in this. We, on the other hand, are suffering a big loss. 500 billion. The officer had his mouth wide open. Feeling helpless, he said, Mr. Chen, your demands are too exaggerated. 500 billion, with this money the country can already form its own team to develop a similar learning machine. Chen Jin said immediately, then I'll support the nation in independent research and development. Singhai Technologies is willing to provide technical consulting services, free of charge. The negotiation once again plunged into a deadlock situation. On the day after, the Ministry of Education increased their bargaining chips, hoping for a buyout at 100 billion, but they got rejected. Immediately, Chen Jin received a call from his grandfather He Chang-ho. His old man lectured him, saying that almost is enough. Do not delay the country's development in education for the sake of money and ultimately become a historical sinner. Chen Jin had no choice but to take 2 hours to let his grandfather understand what was going on in this mind, just vaguely. On the 18th of June, negotiations persisted. Chen Jin came out with a compromised solution. It was finally approved by the Ministry of Education and passed by the higher authorities. There were 3 core contents within the scheme. 1. The intellectual property of the Little Star learning machine and its technical information belonged to Singhai Technologies, but it could be licensed to the state for free. 2. Singhai Technology would supply the Little Star learning machine to the Ministry of Education at a production cost price and 10% hardware profit. The Ministry of Education could even take 70% of the production capacity of the foundry. 3. The state granted complete tax exemption towards the R&D, manufacturing, and production related to the Little Star learning machine. If the state provided tax exemptions, the combined production cost price of the Little Star learning machine would be reduced by at least 40%. That was what Chen Jin valued the most. Towards the end, he said, it is impossible for me to provide a free contribution to core technologies, 100 billion is just like dispatching a beggar. But I can provide a free license to the country and supply the ministry with a low-cost version of the Little Star learning machine, in exchange for tax exemptions. Besides, Singhai Technologies will continue to make learning machines. We have already successfully developed Little Star 2nd Gen, which is 60 times more powerful than the first generation product. For this product, the Ministry of Education can purchase them in large quantities. Singhai Technologies will also sell them to the public. On its pricing, our Little Star 2nd Gen will be following market pricing, tagged at above $10,000. I do not care about the ministry's pricing, it is for you to decide. It is not our problem that some poor students can't afford to use it. This will be my greatest sincerity. If you comply, then may we have a pleasant cooperation. If you insist that I give out free contributions on this, sorry, I really can't do it. You can only give up on this product, go expand in other areas, and we shall not interfere with each other in the future. Chen Jin shrugged his shoulders. It was impossible for him to concede further. The experts looked at each other for a moment. The officer communicated with the higher authorities and received a positive reply. It can be done, the government cannot be wholly responsible for the learning machine, and private companies should participate competitively as well to stimulate the product market and provide better education services. All right, Mr. Chen, we agree to your conditions. Let us make our contributions to the Z Nation's education field together. May we have a pleasant cooperation. Chen Jin shook hands with him with a smile on his face. On the 20th of June, after all the terms were agreed and signed by both parties and the cooperation agreement became official, Chen Jin spoke in the ears of Minister Yuan, a request that made his pupils dilate. Let the little star 2nd Gen partake in the National College Entrance Examinations. Chapter 147, Fall of the Demon Lord. Hu Jun was a 56-year-old teacher who took part in high school education for more than 30 years. He had a typical square face, wore old-fashioned spectacles, and the same grey shirt that he had worn for over 20 years. The way he walked and taught were scrupulous, giving people the impression that he was old-fashioned, serious, and stern. Whenever the students he taught saw him, the smiles on their face would instantly vanish. They corrected their postures and bow their heads down. Even their breathing would become lighter. When he entered a classroom, only 1 second was needed for the whole class to become completely silent. Even the sound of a needle falling onto the ground could be heard. The sound of his footsteps was just like stepping on the hearts of each student. An aura that made students tremble in fear emanated from his body. Yes. He was Hu Jun, the group leader for the question preparation group for Sutang Province's college entrance examination, mathematics section. His very existence instilled fear in the pupils in Sutang Province who would be sitting for the college entrance examination. There was only one word that could describe the similarity in the mathematics paper he made: difficult. Very difficult. In the 150-mark paper, those who managed to get 90 marks would be considered as super scholars, 60 marks and above would be considered above average, and a score of 30 to 50 marks would be considered very normal. Even if people got below 30 marks, they wouldn't be mocked as a lousy scorer. There was even a good portion of people who had gotten 0 in the past. The questions he made were indeed crazily difficult. For some candidates, if they know that Hu Jun was preparing the mathematics paper for their year, they would definitely mourn in despair. Oh my god, Hu Jun again, do they want us dead? I worked so hard for a year and ended up facing the demon lord Hu Jun, I won't even think of getting an extra mark in mathematics. Heavens, please purge this demon lord away. Among the candidates that would be sitting for the college entrance examinations in Sutang Province, he became the dreaded and chilling demon lord. Unfortunately, it was his turn to prepare the mathematics paper for the 20x0 college entrance examination. Many of the candidates plunged into despair. Before handing him the task to prepare the questions, the official from the Ministry of Education in Sutang Province habitually reminded him, Mr. Hu, the past candidates reflected that your questions were too hard, please make it easier this year. Make questions that the students will be able to achieve 90 marks and above on average. Really, please don't make it too tricky. Got it. Hu Jun, as usual, faintly responded with 2 words. The officer immediately became aware that this year's average marks for mathematics would not be over 60 marks. Because the papers with above 60 marks on average would never be the ones prepared by Hu Jun. It seemed that the province's education department would get admonished and receive complaints from the mass population of candidates this year, again. This time, however, Hu Jun really intended to lower the difficulty and come out with a paper that the candidates could score an average of 70 marks and above. The reason was because a candidate wrote a 10,000-word letter for him saying that his questions were too hard. He couldn't enter the university he desired even after repeating for 3 years. He begged for Mr. Hu's mercy to let him fulfill his dreams to be admitted into the university he wished for. It may be because his heart had softened as he had gotten older, as Hu Jun used to be completely unshaken by hundreds of letters of similar requests over the past years. And yet, he was touched by the contents of this letter and decided to lower the paper's difficulty by a little. But only after a few days, not only did he renege his decision and destroy the paper that he had prepared, he also took out the questions that were in his collection for many years, the questions that accumulated over the years of his teaching experience, revered as the most difficult questions of all time. He planned to use them in Sutang Province's mathematics paper this year, giving the candidates a present that would make them unleash their ultimate screech of despair. The other teachers in the question preparation group were shocked. Mr. Hu, this is too much, your questions are too hard. It will be considered good if the candidates can even score an average mark of 30. Mr. Hu, even at my level, I can only get at most 50 marks within 2 hours, not to even mention those students. Mr. Hu, the main purpose of the college entrance examination is to filter out the talents. With your questions that are so difficult, not only are you holding off the weaker students, you are also hampering the good students. We are not fulfilling the filtering purpose this way. Mr. Hu, we have been partners for several decades. With these questions, the candidates will not just simply complain, this will cause a major uproar. We will be held responsible for this. Really? Hu Jun looked at them and nodded. If even you guys say it is hard, then that's all the more reason for these questions to appear in the paper. Mr. Hu. If these questions appear in the paper, we will not have the chance to prepare the papers anymore and you must be responsible for this, another of his partners warned him. If the little star learning machine got 100 marks for the questions I prepared, do you think that we would have the chance to sit here and make papers in the future? Hu Jun asked faintly. Upon hearing him, all of them were stunned. They all nodded their heads as they couldn't help but agree that what he said made sense. If the little star learning machine was powerful enough to answer all the questions including the question finale, the meaning behind the questions that they squeezed their brains to prepare was no longer to filter talents, but to prove the prowess of a learning machine. The ultimate test questions of unprecedented difficulty had been passed unanimously. On the 1st of July, at noon, the college entrance examinations mathematics section took place in Sutong province. After all the tens of thousands of candidates looked at their papers presented before them, they were like a deer caught in the headlights. Their brains tumbled into a blank state. They held their pens in their hands but had completely no idea on how to do the questions. I know every word here, but I have completely no idea on how to do these questions. Aside from the few objective questions, I can't do anything after that. How did I walk out from the exam hall? I think it was after I did the 2 objective questions in front. I got stuck for a very long time at the 3rd question, then I heard the bell ring, asking us to submit our papers. Dad, Mom, I have disappointed you once again, I can only get at most 20 marks for math this year. A candidate cried on the verge of collapsing. His parents consoled him, don't cry, you are not the only one that said the paper was hard. Other students reflected that it was very hard, and many of them even handed in empty papers. It won't affect you from entering a good university. Really? A glimpse of hope reappeared in his despair-filled eyes. Suddenly, a commotion occurred. There was a scream. The answers are out, the answers from the little star learning machine are out. All of a sudden, the enthusiasm of everybody present surged. On the television screen, looking at the answers that flashed through the answer bulletin, Hu Jun opened his eyes wide, and on his face, there was an expression of disbelief. Impossible, how could this be? All these questions were new questions that had yet to appear in the papers. There were no references, and it was impossible to find similar questions on the market. There were a few questions that were uniquely structured and were very innovative as well. Even among the tens of thousands of candidates, it will be considered good even if one of them managed to get the answers right. For the last question, the question finale, there were 3 candidates of all of Sutong province's tens of thousands that got the correct answer. All 3 are worthy to be called a genius in mathematics and should be admitted to prestigious universities. But, the little star leaning machine got all answers correct within 15 minutes. The approach it used to tackle these questions was not super class, it was indeed just high school level methods, not using any knowledge on calculus from the university level. The question finale, not only did little star learning machine get it right, but it also listed 3 alternative ways to solve the question. Compared to the 2 ways that I've thought of, it got an additional one. Hu Jun experienced a tremor from deep within. He backed off a few steps, unable to keep his calm ever again. 150 marks. For the mathematics paper in this year's college entrance examination in Sutong province, the little star second-gen learning machine achieved full marks within 15 minutes of examination time. On the internet that night, the candidates in Sutong province that should be mourning were cheering blithely. Little star the mighty. Little star the awesome. Ha 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 ha, we won, little star won it for us. Demon Lord Hu Jun, the time for you to wreak havoc has passed, to hell you fall. Hu Jun. You are really great, right? But I will fear you no more, the artifact that I'm about to get is even greater than you. Hu Jun, are you content? Have you admitted defeat? Have you seen the might of Little Star? Learn your place Hu Jun, you are no match for Little Star. Defeated. A clean defeat. The fruits that Hu Jun bore with 30+ years drilling in the mathematics field had been vanquished in just a short period of 15 minutes. Listening to those cheering and taunting him on the internet and the voices of censuring from his fellow colleagues, could he simply swallow it down? Of course not. He immediately threw an application to the education department and brought a Little Star second-gen learning machine back to his premise. He took out a box, which had up to 100 sets of mathematics papers in his collection, turned on the scanning function of the Little Star second-gen, and started scanning the papers one by one. After a few hours, having experienced shock, agitation, frustration, despair, and many other complicated mood swings, he recovered his calm and sat on the floor by his bedside. Many papers were scattered around him. He lowered his head as he felt infinitely lost inside. With his mouth filled with bitterness, he shook his head and mumbled, "I've lost, I've completely lost." Looking at the learning machine not far away from him, he said faintly, "Technology nowadays is really getting more and more powerful." For unknown reasons, he revealed a smile of relief at the corner of his mouth. Certainly, as the demon lord in the hearts of innumerable candidates, he had fallen. But in the future of education for the Z nation, there was hope. Chapter 148, Do Not Fill the Brain, Let the Mind Flow. The college entrance examination held in every province all across the state began on the 1st of July and ended on the 2nd of July. On science subjects, the performance of the Little Star 2nd Gen learning machine drew much attention and shocked the 1 billion population throughout the country. In more than 30 mathematics papers with a total point score of 150, the device hit a complete full score. In more than 30 comprehensive science papers with a total point score of 150, the device hit a complete full score as well. In just these two papers, the Little Star learning machine obtained 450 points, enough to get enrolled in many of the second-tier universities in many provinces. For language and English, Little Star could obtain at least half of the total points. Therefore, adding another 150 points, the total points would be 600. With this total mark, not to even say first-tier universities, even attending most of the key universities would not be a problem. With a Little Star 2nd Gen learning machine, one could easily get themselves admitted to a good university. The ability of the device shocked the whole nation and triggered a humongous wave of discussion that swept through society. People were all discussing, with the existence of such a machine that could solve all questions, what was the meaning of the students studying so hard? What impact would it cause the duck-filling exam-oriented education system in the Z nation? There were several representing articles that had been endorsed by countless people. Our education should not be stuffing the brains of our children, but to let their mind flow freely. An article produced by a well-known expert in the education field stated, "Over these years, I have been criticizing the exam-oriented education system, calling for them to reduce the strain shouldered by our children and not to let them solely learn from textbooks. Every aspect such as athleticism, innovative thinking abilities, and moral education must all be pushed. Our children must not become the slaves of knowledge. Exam-oriented education that only drowns the brains of our children must not be continued. But my callings have not received support, only mockery." The principal of Mountain Secondary School, Mr. Wei, criticized me for my foul intentions and for being a servile follower of the foreigners. He stated that exam-oriented education is the basic condition of our country, it is the most unbiased educational system and is the only way for poor students to alter their fate. He also said that only by improving the marks of our high schoolers can more talents be produced, which will increase the amount of gratitude we will receive from the parents. The expert continued, "I always feel that Mr. Wei's concept is somewhat problematic, and the system must not be embraced. But I have lost, and Mr. Wei has won." The students thanked him. The parents thanked him. Me, on the other hand, who called to reduce the burden on our children, was admonished. The number of enrollments across the exam factories throughout our nation has never declined. But now, I want to ask all the Mr. Wei's out there, you transformed all of our children into exam machines, and now a genuine exam machine has appeared. The Little Star learning machine can casually get into first-tier universities. Can the students produced by your exam factories surpass the Little Star learning machine? Maybe some individuals can surpass the machine, but so what? The knowledge contained in their brains are rigid, their minds are not flowing. So, how far can they go in life? Can they be better than the Little Star learning machine, which is certainly more powerful? The article went on, saying, when those students with normal talents get familiar with the Little Star learning machine, master the system's learning methods and become capable of tackling difficult problems, where is the competitiveness of the students produced by your exam factories? It is time for a complete education revolution. When humans start to become more inferior than tools, there will be no need for us to compete with the tools, a human can never win. The only place we can emerge victorious and the only things left for us is our athleticism, our versatile thoughts, and our innovative mind, which is by default our forte as humans. Now, there is a greater need for us to strengthen these abilities. Parents and all the Mr. Wei's out there, from today on, please do not stuff the brains of our children, but let their mind flow freely. An article written by a student's parent was also widespread with over 100 million views. It is time to stop the arms race. I'm a normal parent and a mother that wants her own son to achieve great success in life. My husband's income was at satisfactory levels, positioned at the higher end of the middle tier range. I have a child. I cherish him so much, as he is my everything. I hope for him to grow up happily. But when my child was 3, I enrolled him into an interest class, as all the kids in kindergarten had done so. When he was 6, despite the long distance, I still sent him to the city's most prestigious Noble primary school, with 80,000 annual tuition fees. During his 6 years in primary school, every year on average, I enrolled him into 8 training courses, 120 hours of home tutoring, and as for activities held by the school organization, 7 times per year on average, with each of them costing $5,000 and above. 6 years down in primary school, my child learned piano, dancing, conducting, hosting, drawing, calligraphy, and other skills, totaling 20. Expenditure-wise, totaling the fees, it cost $1.83 million, and this expenditure was considered at the bottom among his classmates. The article continued, when my child entered junior high, I realized that my family's financial ability could no longer support my child's educational expenditures. The annual tuition fee for the Noble Junior High in the city was $210,000. Adding up with additional fees, total expenditure was over $400,000 a year. This was almost at the limits of our capabilities. In spite of that, my husband and I still enrolled our child into many costly training courses. Even if we did not have enough money, we would endure through them gnashing our teeth, because we wished for our child's success, we wished for a bright future for him. But one day, I realized that it had been a long time since my child smiled. His body had become skinny and weak. Every week, his time spent on learning was over 60 hours. He almost never watched TV, or played games. The only thing he was doing was learning. Despite his efforts, and not wanting to disappoint me, he was still at the rock bottom in class for every exam. One day, I went through his diary. He said he wanted to die, and that life had no meaning. I was stunned. I cried and said to my child that I'm sorry, Mommy's wrong, Mum will never force you to learn again. My child sensibly said that he was fine and that he was just writing a few words of complaint. He asked me not to worry. The mother continued and wrote, but how could I not worry? From that day onwards, I had nightmares every single night. I feared that my child would do something stupid. He was just acting as usual, occasionally squeezing out a smile in front of me, but I, on the other hand, became more and more uneasy. I felt that the distance between us was growing. It wasn't until that afternoon that I found a few sleeping pills in my child's pencil case. The very next day, I withdrew my child from school and brought him to the psychologist for counseling sessions. I can lose anything but my child. Even if he cannot be a successful person, I just wish that he will grow up healthy and always stay by my side. After this emotional story, the article got to the main point. In June this year, my child and I came to know some news about the Little Star learning machine. 2 days ago, the Little Star learning machine sat for the college entrance examination and obtained a full score in many papers. My heart was relieved in an instant. My vision widened, giving birth to deep regrets. Yes, a learning machine can easily obtain a better grade than a child who worked hard for years. What is the reason for us to ask our children to obtain higher marks? A machine, way ahead of all parents, has appeared. In the arms war between us parents, what is the meaning behind all the sacrifices we had made? In the face of the cold and emotionless marks, the happiness of our children is priceless. The nature of our children is priceless. The health of our children is priceless. At that moment, I was enlightened. My child also said to me with a face filled with curiosity, Mom, I want a Little Star learning machine. I told him I would buy him one, definitely. Even if it costs $100,000 for a unit, it was still nothing compared to the price we had paid in the past. My heart was finally relieved. He felt it as well, and he won't consider doing stupid things ever again. Thank you Little Star learning machine for saving my family and giving us hope. Except for the 2 articles above, scientists in the scientific community also jointly appealed to the country, commence education reformation immediately. The scientists wrote in their proposal, this is an era of information outbursts, the amount of knowledge is experiencing explosive growth. Some knowledge at university level had been lowered down to senior high level, knowledge at senior high level had been lowered down to junior high level, and the textbooks for primary schoolers already contain some content that is meant for junior high level. But even if we are learning things ahead of time, there is a limit to the brain capacity of humans, and yet knowledge is forever expanding. No matter how talented students are, they can never be able to grasp all knowledge. Learning with a tool is starting to become very important. We should popularize the Little Star learning machine to cultivate our children's creativity and exercise their innovative thinking abilities. A different approach must be practiced on learning knowledge. Duck-filling education that forces our children to learn by rote must not be exercised. The advent of the Little Star learning machine proves that the ability for a machine to learn far exceeds humans. It is telling us that our exam-oriented education has come to a dead end and our paths must be altered. Now, the time has come for us to reform our education system. After the Ministry of Education received the joint proposal letter from the scientific community, relevant personnel immediately replied, "We are working on a reformation plan to conduct a major revolution towards the educational system." On the second day, revolving around the proposal by the scientific community, the higher authorities had a discussion meeting, and a major decision was announced on the same day. Under the premise of ensuring fairness, we are currently studying educational reform plans. After the plans mature, it will immediately be tested in 1 or 2 provinces within the state. If the reformation plan shows significant results, it will be implemented across the whole state. If the results are not significant, we will adjust the plan and continue attempts until the best results are obtained. Only then it will be implemented elsewhere. In short, the education system of Z Nation will definitely undergo reformation. Once this news was announced, the whole nation erupted in enthusiasm and jubilation. Chapter 149, The Scariest Conference in History. A few days ago, Singhai Technologies finally changed its company name, taking away AOU from AOU Singhai Technologies. The real Singhai Technologies was a small software company manufacturing mobile phone brushing tools in Shenzhen City. In their public placard, there were phrases like, "Our technical instructors are God-tier instructors, it is better to teach people to fish than to give them a fish, our goal is to train everyone to be brushing experts, the skilled slaughters with a leaf, the unskilled slaughtered while wielding a dragon saber," and many others. It reflected that this company indeed possessed certain levels of technical abilities. The company's total assets did not exceed 5 million. When Chen Jin sent some men over to acquire this small company and take their company name, the initial bargain was 10 million. The boss of the company thought about it and was about to comply. However, for unknown reasons, the boss, by the surname of Tao, became hesitant. He thought that the price was too low, and he would only sell his company if they increased the price to 50 million. At that period in time, the WA robot was raging like a fever, and Singhai Technologies was causing a sensation nationwide. He thought that something was fishy, that somebody wanted to acquire his company at that time. The personnel that Chen Jin sent to realize the acquisition had no choice, and resorted to outflanking tactics. He convinced Mr. Tao's business accomplices and his family, and at the end, amongst the urging voices, Mr. Tao sold his company at $30 million. After his company was sold, he realized that nobody took over the company's assets. Only 2 days ago did he find out that AOU Singhai Technologies officially changed its name into Singhai Technologies via the company's Weibo. Ah! He pounded his chest in annoyance. Too cheap, I sold the company way too cheap. I lost at least $1 billion. But things done could not be undone. No matter how much he regretted it, he would not be able to change a thing. Inside a huge rest area for the staff to relax, many of Singhai Technologies' staff either sat or leaned at the soft combination sofas. At that time, they were surrounding a young man, freely discussing some issues. Zhen Kir Shin said, "Mr. Chen, after the country announced their plans to reform the education system, those science students are so thrilled, saying that spring has come for them and that learning science will not be difficult anymore. But the art students, on the other hand, are all complaining. They are asking why the Little Star learning machine can't serve them and that they need a learning machine to help them memorize books too. They also accused Singhai Technologies as being biased towards science students, and they are super angry about it." She hugged a pillow and blinked her round eyes at him. "Biased towards science students?" Chen Jin said while smiling, "What's the reason for their accusations? They of all people should have known that on some sensitive topics, they are free to probe into it, but if the Little Star learning machine were to even touch on it, it would spell disaster. They shouldn't complain. In another few years to come, learning arts will become more difficult than learning science. The world will come to need more creative minds, like artists, cartoonists, composers, poets, philosophers, all of these will become high-paying professions in the future. The salary of science talents will be immensely behind them. The income of those with careers in liberal arts will generally be higher than that of science. When technical personnel can be mass-produced, the golden age for students studying liberal arts will be hastily approaching. Really? A young man beside him dared not to believe it. Do liberal arts really have a brighter future in the time to come? Yes, the reversal will happen in at maximum 30 years' time. Chen Jin did not blindly come out with all of this knowledge. Planet Hierophant itself had experienced this development in its course of history. Back on Earth, after the advent of the Smart Learning Program, the pro-arts era would come quickly. Mr. Chen, recently, I logged into a few foreign review websites to look at their feedback towards the Little Star learning machine, and I almost died out of anger. More than half of the foreign netizens have in mind that we stole their tech, another half thought that it was a hoax. Only a small portion of them thought that the Little Star learning machine was good and that their kids should have one. This handsome young man by the name of Lu Si said with dismay, "Mr. Chen, do you think that those foreigners were hopelessly brainwashed by their media? When we take out something great they will accuse us of stealing. You pay attention to the foreigners' feedbacks." Chen Jin gave him a weird glance, shook his head, and said, "There is no need for you to pay attention to their reaction. Normal people can only interact with normal people. There is no way for normal people to interact with idiots and lunatics. We will never affiliate ourselves with them, it will be like finding trouble. Are you implying that we are not selling the Little Star learning machine to the foreigners?" Lu Si asked with his eyes flashing. "For what purpose would we sell it to them?" Chen Jin shrugged his shoulders. "What benefits will we get by increasing the IQ of those lunatics? How will it benefit our country?" He shook his head. "Just let them continue to indulge in their own high, I can't help them change their IQ, and I don't want any of their benefits as well. Let them say what they want, as long as they're happy themselves." "Haha. What you said makes sense, Mr. Chen. On things like IQ, we should just charge our own people with it, why bother about those foreigners? Those foreigners don't have a brain to begin with, what can be changed? Hua, didn't they like to block and restrict us? I'll let them taste their own medicine." The crowd laughed. They all felt very thrilled. The 7th of July was a day of grave importance. In Shanghai City's Workers' Stadium, an epoch-making product eligible to be recorded in history books was released. The Little Star 2nd Gen learning machine. Its performance was 10 times higher than that of Little Star 1st Gen. In its tree of knowledge, aside from a small portion of subjects, all knowledge checkpoints for 12 years of elementary and high school were updated into the system. It could answer any questions raised by the user within the answer scope and solve any problem revolving around logical operation from elementary to high school level. Besides, on the hardware used in the construction of the Little Star 2nd Gen learning machine, aside from some flash chips that needed to be imported, other hardware like the screen, camera, battery, motherboard, CPU, AI chip, and memory chip were all locally made products. The localization rate was over 98% and the product was safe, reliable, and one that a person could use with complete assurance and ease of mind. The power of the Little Star 2nd Gen learning machine astonished people. Its high localization rate made the crowd excited. The conference could be said to have achieved a sensational success. However, for the majority of netizens, their most intuitive feelings about the conference and their most profound impression towards it was generally anxiety and fear. They called the conference the scariest conference in history. The reason was that of all 30,000 invited audience members, there were officials from the Ministry of Education, a heck-ton of experienced teachers, and parents who cared for their children's learnings. All the guests sat in the seats sternly. They all had solemn expressions and none of them were making any noise. Most of the netizens in front of their screens were left in shock. Chilling. I had jitters of being dominated. My psychological obscuration is rapidly growing. Holy, this is so scary. Please don't broadcast horror movies. I'm out. I have cold sweat all over my body, I'll keep my eyes off this. Chapter 150, More Interaction. Recently, Shanghai Technologies once again expanded their headquarters. The office area rented by the company increased from 4 to 8 floors. Of all the 32 floors of the office building, a quarter of it belonged to Shanghai Technologies. But this was not all. Having considered that the company would still be expanding in the future, Chen Jin asked his men to acquire a piece of land at the periphery of Baoshan Industrial Park. His intention was to build the company's headquarters that would be 80 floors, excluding 3 basement floors, and expanding a floor area of 60,000 square meters which could accommodate up to 5,000 people. The building will be named Xinghai Edifice. The company hired a well-known architectural design team to be in charge of the building's design. In the final scheme, the exterior of the building resembled an interstellar battleship which was flying straight up into the skies, with the letters Xinghai patterned onto the middle section of the building. The design was overflowing with fictional vibes. In terms of cost, including architectural design fees, renovation, internal equipment, and other miscellaneous fees, the estimated cost was around $3.5 billion. The land had been acquired, and the professional construction team would be commencing operations by next month. By opting to high-speed construction methods, it was estimated that the building could be put into use in 2.5 years' time. After the Little Star 2nd Gen was released, among the first 1 million units of stock, 600,000 units were sold wholesale to the Ministry of Education at a low price of $1,870. If those machines were sold to the mass population of students at around $2,000, even the poorer families would be able to afford it. Besides, Xinghai Technologies would be conducting sales on their own for the remaining 400,000 units. The market price was set at $8,800. Due to complete tax exemption, which saved them more than 40% of tax payment costs, the hardware profit margin was as high as 70%. Considering the low hardware cost price, they feared that selling it above $10,000 might lead to criticism. After all, this product that Chen Jin launched was not, as some people said, to cast the poor into hell, further strengthening hierarchy and whatnot. For something around $8,000, people could gather up to $10,000 simply by applying for a credit card. If those extremely poor families were to be taken into consideration as well, they would not be able to afford it even if it was priced at $1,000. To create a fair world for those who were not able to send their child to school and struggling to fill their bellies, they might need to be gifted every single thing. In this matter, Chen Jin really could not get himself to do so. He was not a philanthropist, and this was not something for him to take care about either. The only concern for him was to make the Little Star 2nd Gen affordable for most families. Moreover, there were more units in the hands of the Ministry of Education. Even if the poorer students still could not afford them at cost price, Chen Jin would still put both of his hands out of this matter. Another thing was that the Little Star 2nd Gen learning machine was using the Star Network selling model, in which the machine was sold to the parents via other parents or teachers. This absolutely shattered the scalpers' dreams of becoming rich. They, who initially planned to accumulate large stockpiles through the online market, suddenly realized that the Little Star 2nd Gen was not sold online but was using the Star Network. Subsequently, they all scrambled in wildly as they wanted to become the Little Star 2nd Gen sales agent. However, Xinghai Technologies imposed strict inspections towards their agents. The criteria were agents must use their real name, must be a woman with at least a bachelor's degree, must have kids attending school, and various other rules. Many verification documents must be provided through the system which imposed strict inspections and punishment policies. Over 90% of the scalpers' dream to make a fortune was completely smashed to smithereens. Aside from that, on the foundry's production capacity, 200,000 Little Star 2nd Gen learning machines could be produced daily under the foundry's full horsepower. However, considering that there were 200 million students within the country from primary school to high school, based on the one for everyone assumption, production would not be able to supply demand in the first 2 years. To prevent the benefits of parents from getting harmed, the Star online selling model appeared to be of greater importance. After dealing with all the business, Chen Jin planned to have a good time of relaxation. In the Pudong area in Junting Grand Court, Villa 8, Chen Jin was settled in the backyard by the pool. He rested leisurely on a beach chair under the umbrella, wearing colorful beach pants and sunglasses, enjoying the summer breeze as he fell into a shallow sleep. Chen Jin, come down and play. Come and swim with me for a while. In the pool, there was a gorgeous lady with a slim waist and long legs, who was wearing a bikini. She was twisting her graceful figure with her fair arms sliding over the water while she invited the man at the poolside to join her. However, Chen Jin had already swum earlier on. He played with the pretty lady in the water for quite some time. As he felt a little tired, he got up and went to rest at the poolside for a while. Seeing that her man was not responding to her, the beauty could only leave the pool. She walked to the man, took the sunscreen lotion on the small table, squeezed some on her hands and started rubbing the cream evenly on the man's chest. The woman's hand was delicate and soft with fingers as white as snow. Her rubbing action was very gentle. She inadvertently touched some sensitive places with a pleasant smile on her face. She touched the two little dots on the man's chest numerous times, drawing circles with her index finger around them. Stop touching. Chen Jin opened his eyes and grabbed her hands. He looked at her and said, "Didn't you have enough last night? Why are you still so energetic today? Why can't I? My regenerative abilities are impeccable, don't look down on me." The woman teased him and smiled while winking seductively. "Yuan Li, go lie down and rest, I'm a little tired, let's test our skills again tonight," said Chen Jin helplessly. Facing the very passionate beauty last night, Chen Jin, who had not tasted flesh in the past 3 years, was unable to hold himself and subjugated himself to the director's daughter. It ended up with a prolonged battle until 3 in the morning, exhausting all his energy. After the gunfire, he went into his post-coital tristesse and all of a sudden, his head started to hurt. Why did I sleep with the director's daughter? What was even more surprising was that this was Yuan Li's first time. Only last night, she completed her metamorphosis from a girl to a woman. This made him feel troubled, as he did not know how to arrange this. Actually, Yuan Li was indeed a nice person, pretty, cheerful, and lively. Aside from being a little delicate, there was nothing to pick off from her. Chen Jin was not a freshie since a long time ago. He started to be in relationships since junior high. Until the time when he graduated from university, he had experienced at least 5 to 6 girls, some with pure and beautiful love and some with multiple trips to heaven. To summarize, he was a pro in the field of love. Chen Jin had high standards. The girls he dated in the past were all 7 or 8 out of 10 in terms of appearance. Yuan Li was not the prettiest, nor was she the one that he felt the best. Towards Yuan Li, he just had a favorable impression, not even to the level of liking her. If it wasn't to fulfill his needs and that the director's daughter was invited to stay overnight, he would never have touched her. Now, he had to scratch his head to solve the matter. After some thought, he still opened up and said with all honesty, "Yuan Li, I don't want to have a family just yet. Last night was just me being too impulsive. Actually, I regard you as a good friend, I never wanted to. Speaking of which, why were you so passionate last night? Didn't I ask you to rest next door?" Yuan Li bit her lip while she remained silent. If it was another person that took her virginity and came out with such ruthless words, she would have slapped the guy already. But looking at the man before her, not only that she did not get mad, she held her towel tightly and hummed, "I know you don't like me just yet, but I like you. I myself am willing to do so, so you don't need to be responsible. I just hope that you can talk to me and accompany me more in the future, sooner or later, you will like me as well." Chen Jin nodded. "I really don't have the energy to talk about partners and whatnot. But you are a good lady, so let's interact more in the future, as my soul mate." Of course, as they interacted more often, they must pay attention to safety as well. At the present time, he did not want a human side product to appear. Last night, he took some safety precautions. Besides, considering that he had another planet in his hand, management would be an issue if there were fewer people. So, he had to get a lot of people. The number of his offspring could not be small. So, for me, isn't one wife a little insufficient? Chen Jin stretched his hands. It was not that he had an overwhelming amount of love, it was because his planet required manpower. Yet, Yuan Li nodded her head continuously as she was filled with joy. Chapter 151, Rubbish is a Resource. After the few days of debauchery in the villa of Junting Grand Court, Chen Jin put on the ordinary clothing that he had originally worn and returned to his home in the Court of Happiness. On planet of Higher Fa, in the central district of the base of operations, an office building was located across the garden villa. In the office building, Chen Jin appeared in the hall of the 15th story where a holographic sand table stood. In the center of the hall, a sand table that was even greater than a film set was presented to him. A holographic image of a planet floated above the sand table. The planet was a translucent blue orb that was slowly spinning on its axis. Naturally, this planet was Higher Fa. The image of the AI, Nuwa, was reporting on the latest progress on the remodeling of Higher Fa. "Master, the first area to be remodeled is the northern Mi continent where our base is located. It has an area of 2,471 square kilometers. 2/3 of it are polar climate regions, hence it will be more difficult to remodel those areas. Territories that could potentially undergo remodeling are estimated to be a total area of 1,630 square kilometers. So, Out of the 1,630 artificial lakes that I have to start digging, construction has already started on 581. We are mobilizing 3.846 million robots and 112,000 large-sized engineering machines. As the terrain is composed of lowlands, we can start the digging on any location within the lowlands. Realistically, there is not a huge amount of work to be done. One lot can be completed within a year. In addition, we can utilize the air transport carriers in the adjacent port of Wenjing Aerospace. I have also repaired and remodeled a large group of cargo ships into icebreaker transporters. In total, we have 127 ice-breaking transporters and 2 nuclear-powered ice diggers. The empty tonnage of the fleet is 2,040,000 tons. The fleet has a full load tonnage of 6,560,000 tons. It can carry 4,520,000 tons of fresh water per trip. Currently, the transport capability of the fleet does not even meet 1,000th of our needs. I am currently carrying out new ideas to increase the ease of supplying fresh water to the lakes. Nuwa explained, for example, by means of rainmaking. Alternatively, they could build some iceberg tugboats and tow the icebergs to the shore, and then further inland. They would wait for the ice to melt into liquid and transport it directly into the artificial lakes via high-pressure pipelines. In short, the level of complexity involved in this vast project of environment remodeling was beyond the imagination of the average Joe. Chen Jin had heard enough. His head felt like it was going to explode. He waved his hand. Stop detailing the specifics of the remodeling process. I just want a planet with verdant hills, clear waters, and a blue sky with white clouds. Rest assured, Master. I will complete the task by the given deadline. The current rate of the remodeling process is not fast. However, it will rapidly accelerate after the initial phase. In addition, I speculate that the task of remodeling the environment of Higher Fa may be completed a few years in advance. Completed in advance? Chen Jin's eyes brightened. How can it be completed in advance? It's because we have much more resources at our disposal than anticipated. Nuwa explained that the huge quantities of robots she had sent out would also conduct a thorough search in the nearby villages, towns, and factories in the process of excavating the lake. Even if that equipment was buried under many tons of sand, they would find it. For every village or town that was excavated, it meant a significant reward would be uncovered. Nuwa continued, although the mineral resources of this planet are near exhaustion, they have not completely disappeared. They still remain on this planet. For example, steel. After entering the industrial age, the total steel production by human societies exceeded 200 billion tons. Steel was used in countless building materials, steel products, and the vast number of everyday consumer products. Such a vast quantity of steel no longer exist as metals in their original form underground. Instead, they are in the forms of various products. They have become something that we can touch and hold. There is no need for mining machines to extract, concentrate, and smelt the metals. Steel is easily obtainable from everywhere. This is a tremendous reserve of resources. There are 200 billion tons of steel products. Even if we collected only 10%, it would be enough for us to abandon the idea of extracting iron. There is no need to extract aluminum, copper, gold, silver, tungsten, iron, etc. We only need to gather 20% more of what we already have in our reserves. That would be sufficient for our uses. Nuwa smiled. Master, actually, even I had made a mistake in judgment. We thought that all the resources on Higher Fa had been exhausted and we'd have to start extraction. We only focused on increasing our quantities, and neglected the huge amounts of resources that had entered society, becoming the reserves of the whole civilization. Take the example of a small town with less than 100 households. The robots had scoured and found thousands of tons of metals. In another abandoned petrochemical plant, the robots had gathered more than 20,000 tons of scrap steel. When a planet has become so desolate to the point that there is nearly no human left, we will suddenly find that resources have become so abundant, and they are all lying on the surface of the ground. Therefore, Master, we do not lack the majority of resources. We only have to increase the intensity and scope of the robot's search. Resources will not restrain the pace of our development. As he listened to Nuwa, Chen Jin nodded repeatedly. He summed up succinctly, I understand what you mean. It can be concluded in one sentence, rubbish is a resource. Nuwa said, yes, Master. Following which, she revealed her plan for the ultimate ransack. As they were remodeling the environment, millions of robots and engineering machines would dig 3 feet into the ground. They would excavate all the rubbish on the planet, gather them, and categorize them. Then, they would either remelt the rubbish and smelt it again, or reuse it directly. This would most fully utilize all the rubbish they had found. Good. Nuwa, it's okay to waste a little more time to locate and excavate these resources. Try your best to pick everything clean, no corner is to be missed. Chen Jin did not want any single darling to remain forever buried under the yellow sand in the process of this ultimate ransack. Yes, master. After his talk with Nuwa, Chen Jin took the elevator down to the 8th story. A special device was placed in the center of the hall on the 8th story, a top version of a simulated game compartment. The compartment had a milky white appearance that was smooth and round. With its capsule shape, it looked like an enlarged pigeon's egg. It was just big enough for a fully grown adult to enter. In addition, the base of this compartment was composed of a group of thick and solid mechanical limbs. These limbs were able to exercise mobility of up to 6 degrees, up, down, left, right, front, and back. After the user had entered the simulated environment, they could complement whatever was happening in the simulated environment by moving, accelerating, decelerating, rising, and lowering. It was said that if the user also wore the simulated reality headgear, the environment would become 1% to 2% closer to reality, thus becoming that much closer to a full match with reality. It was a necessity for the rich geek gamers. There was also a built-in nutrient solution system and a urine collection device in this game compartment. These would ensure that the user could fight in the simulated environment for 3 days in a row. He would not have to quit halfway to take care of bodily needs. Chen Jin laid down inside the compartment and wore the simulated reality headgear. Quietly, he muttered, landing. An infinite white light filled his sight. After the trembling he experienced in his mind stopped, he was wearing a white astronaut suit and stood on the peripheral platform of a giant spaceport. Raising his head, he saw that beyond the transparent dome of the spaceport was a dark background dotted with countless stars. The scenery felt extremely quiet and profound. Liming Spaceport. Number 001 Novice Base. Chen Jin embarked on the half-completed simulated reality game The Interstellar Homeland OL. He had become the master of this spaceport and the supreme commander of this novice base. Beside him, a colorful glow appeared, transforming into the AI, Alice. Master, I've completed the design of the interstellar battleship that you wanted me to develop. Here, it's this battleship below. Chen Jin's gaze followed the direction that Alice's finger was pointing at. It finally came to rest on the all-black battleship in the dock. Chapter 152, What kind of technologies are needed to build an interstellar battleship? It was prototype number 1. Alice had used 6 months and her computing power of 10 sextillion T-flops to finally design a prototype of the interstellar battleship. Its appearance resembled a broadsword, wide at the back and tapering to a slim front. It looked very sharp. Its various parameters were: length, 412 meters. Widest width, 71 meters. Height, 32 meters. Weight, 382,000 tons. Energy system, a small nuclear fusion reactor. Power system, ion engine. As for the weapon configuration, by the hatch of the ship was a large caliber particle cannon. Many laser cannons were distributed at the sides of the ship, while the upper portion was equipped with electromagnetic cannons for close-range defense. Missiles and nuclear torpedo launchers of great power were installed on the bottom of the ship. In addition, there was an advanced radar system, a sighting system, and an intelligent remote control system. After doing an overall evaluation, Alice thought that the combat capability of the interstellar battleship prototype number 1 was about 5. It could fulfill the basic requirements needed to participate in interstellar battles. Combat capability of 5. Chen Jin felt somewhat disappointed. Shaking his head helplessly, he said, "Okay, it's better than nothing." "Master, do you want to enter prototype number 1 and operate it out of the port? You could go to the meteorite zone beside the port and test the prowess of the weapons system." "Of course." Chen Jin nodded. In the next second, he appeared in the bridge control room of prototype number 1. He started up the reactor engine. The engine system began to warm and charge. The ion engine started up and it spat out an azure tail of flame. Prototype number 1 slowly left the dock of the spaceport and entered the vacuum environment of outer space. As he increased the engine power, the speed of prototype number 1 continued to increase. Sitting in the captain's seat, Chen Jin felt a clear wave of pushback from the acceleration. But, it was within his tolerable range. Looking at the data displayed for acceleration, it was 1 guarani and 82 centimos. With a frown, Chen Jin asked, Alice, the engine has been revved up to its highest power, but the acceleration is only limited to this. The acceleration of a battleship reflected its mobility. A higher acceleration would mean that it had better mobility and a faster response. Frankly speaking, the number of 1.82 g meant that it could not even dodge attacks from most weapons. This battleship was just a sitting duck. Alice said, Yes, Master. The engine thrust power is limited to this number. This is the maximum power that the small-sized fusion reactor on prototype number 1 can provide. Chen Jin shook his head. A shitty response speed means that the battle will be 5 times shittier. However, Alice explained that with the current technical reserves, they could only make a fusion reactor with this much power. After 20 minutes, he arrived at the meteorite zone. The zone was littered with countless meteorites, they ranged from a diameter of 10 meters all the way to diameters of thousands of meters. Chen Jin sat in the seat of the weapons officer. Manipulating the various weapons, he carried out an indiscriminate attack on meteorites of all sizes. Buzz! This was the sound of the particle cannon firing. Pew pew! The laser cannons shot out rays of blinding laser light. Boom! The electromagnetic cannons shot out shells. Vroom! Countless missiles and nuclear torpedoes were shot from the launchers. Chen Jin operated the weapons at full force. Those meteorites that were peacefully floating along in space met with a terrible fate. In the light of the orange flames, meteorites of all sizes were broken and scattered into tiny pieces. When the nuclear torpedoes with its shocking power collided with the larger meteorites that had diameters over 1,000, even they subsequently disintegrated in countless fragments under the force of his attacks. The unbridled attacks and the scene of destruction it caused created a visual feast. After more than 20 minutes, Chen Jin got several alerts. Insufficient energy. Main cannon is charging. Charging will be completed in 5 minutes. Laser cannon is charging. Energy in missile and nuclear torpedo launchers are depleted. Please start charging. Insufficient energy for the electromagnetic cannons. Insufficient ammunition. After a round of crazy attacks, Chen Jin had exhausted all the weapons ammunition on prototype number 1. However, he was still very satisfied with the impact of the attacks. At least he could not see even one whole meteorite in his field of vision anymore. He had cleared a range of 100 kilometers, creating an empty zone. Even if its combat ability is only 5, it should have no trouble facing off battleships with combat abilities in the range of 10 or 20 in terms of attack power. It simply would not be able to hurt the enemy. As long as prototype number 1 was produced, it meant that Chen Jin had a means of self-defense, no matter how weak it was. He could just barely struggle in a fight against the heretofore unknown forces of great power. Even if the prototype number 1 was weak with its combat ability of 5, he still had to produce a few of it. Moreover, this was proof that the base had the technological capability. Alice had said, if an operable interstellar battleship can be designed in a simulated environment that has a 99.9999% match with reality, it means that the ability to produce that battleship is present in real life. However, the computing ability needed for this project was ridiculously extensive. Alice had run herself haggard for 6 months. Since the base was prepped with the technologies needed to produce prototype number 1 through research and development in the simulated environment, did that mean that the base would soon be able to produce the prototype in real life? No, Alice shook her head. The base is currently not equipped with this ability. It will not achieve this ability for at least another 10 years. Theoretically, we can create the battleship prototype number 1. But in reality, there are a few key pieces of equipment that the base is still unable to produce. These few types of equipment form the core equipment of prototype number 1. None can be missing. In other words, the technology contained in this type of core equipment was the type of technology that was necessary to build an interstellar battleship. The nuclear fusion reactor had to generate a power of 100 billion kilowatts or more. The weight of the reactor had to be controlled within a certain range to ensure stable operation for 50 years or more. The time needed for the base to achieve this technology was 10 years. The ion engine used a powerful electromagnetic field to accelerate the speed of the ionic medium to 0.1 times the speed of light, producing a tremendous thrust. The time needed for the base to achieve this technology was 8 years. The powerful particle cannon was a weaponized version of the ion engine. Similarly, the ionic medium would be accelerated to 0.1 times the speed of light to produce a huge force of physical and energy-destroying power. The time needed for the base to achieve this technology was 8 years. An intelligent control system for spacecraft was required to have the operational capability of the supercalculator installed on the ship to reach 1 sextillion teraflops or more. The time needed for the base to achieve this technology was 3 years. The base would need 3 to 5 years, in general, to come up with the technology needed to produce high-performing and superconductive materials. So, Alice, you mean that currently, the base only has the technological reserves? It needs at least a few more years to develop its production capabilities before it can take the first steps to build the equipment. Yes, Master. Having the appropriate technology does not mean that the product can be produced immediately. The base currently lacks various types of advanced manufacturing equipment. The transport squad is currently searching everywhere for the right equipment. Chen Jin asked with a frown, and we have to wait for 10 years before construction on prototype number 1 can begin. He had to wait for another 10 years? No, Alice shook her head. It's the most critical equipment, the fusion reactor, that needs 10 years to be created. But, the body of prototype number 1 and other systems on board are composed of modules that use less complex technology. Those can be constructed in advance. When the reactor is produced, it can simply be installed in the battleship and prototype number 1 will be quickly completed. So that means that the earliest time the base will have its first interstellar battleship is 10 years from now. Yes, Master. Chen Jin shook his head helplessly. He could only officially have his first interstellar battleship after 10 years and depleting huge quantities of energy and resources. Moreover, it would have a very low combat ability. Was the interstellar battleship really necessary? Or should he just start all kinds of small projects, and make some headway here and there to accumulate a collection of technologies and resources? And when he had sufficient resources all around, he could develop a military and start rapidly producing armies in a frenzy. Chen Jin was faced with two choices, making him feel rather conflicted. Chapter 153, Medical Technology to Extend Life. After carefully deliberating for 2 days with many discussions with Alice and Nuwa, Chen Jin finally made his decision. Build it. Building the interstellar battleship was a must. However, he would not start the construction immediately. He would wait until he had sufficient resources before starting construction. The planned estimated date when the construction would start was 7 years later. Construction would last for about 5 years. By the 12th year, Chen Jin would be in possession of the first F-grade interstellar battleship. The F-grade was the weakest grade. The maximum number of battleships that he would build was 1. After which, it would be an experimental spaceship for scientific research purposes. He would carry out experiments on engine systems, weapons systems, and control systems. It would act as an experimental platform for various technologies. It would provide valuable support in terms of data for the development of the next battleship, which would be more powerful. That was right. The simulated reality game, the Interstellar Homeland OL, had a reality level of more than 99.9999%. Theoretically, the prototype number 1 battleship designed by Alice in the simulated environment could be transformed into a battleship that was usable in reality. But, no matter how lifelike the simulated reality environment was, even as it got infinitely closer to reality, there still existed a certain difference. A minuscule difference of 1 in 100 million. Such a small difference would not cause any big issues on small devices, but for something as ginormous and complicated as the interstellar battleship, the accumulated differences would be greater. If he did not build the prototype number 1 in reality and extract huge amounts of real-life data from it to correct the differences, it was unlikely that Alice would be able to develop a more advanced interstellar battleship. Therefore, prototype number 1 must be built. But due to its weaker combat ability, he would build one and only one. Using the prototype number 1 as a foundation, he would research and develop prototype number 2, which would have a more powerful combat ability. If prototype number 2 had more powerful capabilities that were sufficient for his uses, then he would produce a few more. It would be a batch created for military purposes. If prototype number 2 had weaker capabilities that were insufficient to satisfy his needs, then he would stop at 1. He would use the prototype number 2 as a scientific development platform to aid the development of prototype number 3. He would not stop until he had produced an interstellar battleship with a combat ability that met his satisfaction. After which, he would rapidly expand production capacities and produce them in lots until the quantity was sufficient. This type of development model was termed sprinting in small steps. Then again, was this type of development somewhat small-minded? What if he was suddenly faced with danger? How would he resist the enemy when he had no decent battleships? Of course, Chen Jin had his reasons for considering this course of action. A generation gap existed between weapons systems. For example, knives, swords, and crossbows were one generation ahead of rocks and wooden clubs. Rifles and cannons were one generation ahead of heavy cavalry. Aircrafts and tanks were one generation ahead of linear attacks. And the ultimate weapon of the nuclear bomb was one generation ahead of all conventional weapons. In between two systems was a tremendous generation gap. Once a conflict occurred, the odds would not be 1 to 10 or 1 to dozens. It could be 0 to infinite. Even if it was the most powerful weapon in its generation, once it came up against a weapon from the next generation, it would be destroyed and eliminated immediately. For example, if the prototype number 1 designed by Alice was to meet with an E-grade battleship with a combat ability of 10 or more, the odds would be terrible at 0:10 or worse. If it met with a D-grade battleship that was 2 generations ahead, the odds would be much worse than even 0:100. Hence, rather than having an interstellar battleship with outdated technology, it would be better to have one with the latest technology. Under the premise of rapid technological development, he could reduce resource wastage by taking the pathway of sprinting in small steps. It was the best choice for him to achieve sufficient self-defense capabilities in the shortest amount of time. In this long intermediate gap before a battleship with a satisfactory performance could be achieved, the only action Chen Jin could take to build up his defense was only an early-stage alarm system. Chen Jin said, "Alice, your present task is urgent. You have to develop a type of early warning satellite and produce a few hundred or even thousands of them. Dark Lady of the Nine Heavens will take these satellites and release them into the periphery of Higher Fa planet to create a set of early warning systems. The larger the monitoring range, the better. It has to be good enough to be able to detect approaching enemies early so we can have sufficient time to react." Alice replied, "Yes, Master. I will immediately begin the development and production of the early warning satellite and build an excellent alarm system." Nuwa commented that with the current technological capabilities of the base, the primary warning system could cover every corner in the area located within the radius of 100 astronomical units. With transmission speeds of electromagnetic waves, this would be equivalent to a warning of 13.8 hours in advance. 13.8 hours? Chen Jin nodded. With half a day's time, it might be impossible to come up with an idea to defeat a stronger enemy, but it would be a simple thing to pack up his valuables and flee to Earth. Out of the near 300,000 tons of gold that he had accumulated in the base, he could transport at least a few hundred tons to Earth. Say, why am I always thinking of fleeing? Chen Jin shook his head forcefully. Those mysterious and powerful forces were causing him to feel crazy. Actually, he only wanted to peacefully carry out his various small projects to transform Higher Fa into a planet filled with rolling hills and clear waters, with the sounds of birds and the fragrance of flowers in the background. However, after witnessing the post-destruction devastation on Higher Fa, he dare not remain defenseless no matter how much trust he had in himself. Even worse, he had a vague hunch that the peaceful, countryside times when he could quietly develop his own projects would not continue forever. Sooner or later he would come face to face with those heretofore unknown powerful forces. Conflict would suddenly arise and they would collide. Maybe they would even fight to the death, and only then would the winner be revealed. Chen Jin would face these collisions. It was because he could live until that moment. There was a medical research facility located in the base of Operations Science R&D Zone. Based on the technological information and medical equipment gathered, a type of medical technology had been successfully developed inside the facility. A risk-free life-extending technology. This technology could extend a human's life to around the age of 220, totally free of medical risks. The specific principles behind life extension included increasing the lifespan of cells, extending DNA telomeres, strengthening the ability of cells to fight oxidation, etc. A plethora of effective pharmaceutical ingredients was encompassed in a shot called the life-extending injection. The injection was made up of a light amber fluid. After an injection had been administered to the human body, the results were very obvious. In a few short days, one could see that he had turned younger. His skin would be smoother and tighter. His body would be filled with vigor. However, the effects of this single injection could only last for a maximum of 3 months. He could go for this injection every 3 months. If he continued doing this for the rest of his life, not only could he live until 220, but he could also retain his youthful looks and vitality forever. The price was exorbitant. One shot of the life-extending injection cost $100,000. 4 injections in a year was equivalent to $400,000. However, the annual income of the overwhelming majority would not exceed $300,000. Hence, it was an unchangeable fact that this was a medical treatment that only the rich could afford. However, the AI, Scarlet was not reformatted. After Alice entered Sakura, Scarlet was restarted, who was in charge of researching this medical technology, commented, "The production cost of the life-extending injection is very low. At most, it cost $10 million to manufacture one injection. As long as the raw materials are sufficient, the base can mass-produce the injections in big batches." Production cost of $10 million? Chen Jin shook his head. The profits from this injection is so much higher than profits from drugs. The pharmaceutical company called Angel has a blacker heart than drug runners. Now that this life-extending injection could be manufactured at the base, he could get a shot every day without worrying about the costs, much less getting only one shot every 3 months. However, the effects of this injection was limited to the age of 220. Beyond this age, the amounts of toxins and heavy metals accumulated in the human body would reach life-threatening levels. If one still wanted to extend his life, he could go to the nursing facility on the moon or the hospital in outer space. In a minimal to zero-gravity environment, he would receive the low-risk life-extending treatment where toxins would be eliminated from his body. After eliminating all the various toxins from the body, it was basically a non-issue to extend one's life until 300 years old. But, when a person had lived for more than 300 years, he would face increasing medical risks if he wanted to extend his life. Still, there were medical treatments that could achieve this. However, the development history of Hierophant was not long. To the day that the civilization was destroyed, the longest living billionaire was only 289 years old. He did not have the opportunity to undergo the medical treatment that would allow him to extend his life to 1,000 years or more. So, if Chen Jin wanted to extend his life to 1,000 years or even more, he had to develop this medical technology himself. In short, living forever was not wishful thinking. For him, it was something that was entirely achievable. Chapter 154, Soo-Yun's shock. "Mom, why doesn't Soo-Yun come to our home anymore? She seemed to have stopped visiting for a long time." During mealtime, Chen Jin opened his hand and counted on his fingers. He realized that Soo-Yun had stopped coming to his home for half a month. Yesterday, Mom had explained that Soo-Yun had more or less finished learning the accounting knowledge that she had come to learn from her. She would not be visiting so frequently anymore. He did not know why, but his heart felt a little empty, as if there was something missing. Hence, he could not help but repeat his question again. "What? She has almost finished learning what she was supposed to learn from me. You still want her to come to our place every day?" Rolling her eyes at her blockhead son, she thought that his speed of response was way too slow. Soo-Yun had stopped coming here for almost a month and he was only starting to talk about it now? His slow and dumb behavior disheartened her. He was presented with such a good lady, yet he actually remained indifferent. "Is your standard too high, or are my tastes too low?" However, his response today finally allowed her to recover some of her confidence. Silently, she approved. "I manipulated the scenes for such a long time, it's impossible that there would be no results." This fellow could not remain entirely indifferent. As to why Soo-Yun had stopped visiting, Li, with a similarly sensitive personality, knew the reason. She felt inferior. A sense of inferiority so great that she could not bear it anymore. It was the cause of her lack of courage to visit their home again. Li's son was too outstanding. Wealth magazine estimated that his personal worth was more than 18 billion. The magazine also predicted that this number would exceed 80 billion within 2 years. He would rise to become one of the top 10 billionaires in the country. The rate at which his riches were multiplying was beyond one's imagination. He had created 2 types of products. One had brought convenience into millions of households, and the other had transformed the education of the entire Z country. The 2 products had a deep and significant impact on the future of the country, both were worthy of applause. They brought about positive and wonderful impacts that were highly admirable. Faced with such a high achiever, even Li herself had started to develop an inferiority complex. She frequently asked herself, "Is this really the son that came from me? Why did she always feel like she was in a dream?" Li could totally understand how Soo-Yun was unable to find the courage to come again. Li even noticed that Soo-Yun had become even quieter at work. Nowadays, she did not like to talk and would always hold her head down. Soo-Yun's gaze would also skitter away when she saw Li. The relationship between the two had gradually become less intimate and more distant. An invisible barrier had grown between them. He Li was very clear about the reasons behind her behavior and she expressed her understanding. Recently, she noticed that her subordinate was smiling more. He Li called her into the office for a heart-to-heart talk and inquired if something happy had happened to her. So-yoon did not hide the facts. She explained, "My parents and my younger siblings will be coming to Shanghai to visit me. It's been so long. This is their first time coming to such a big city for a vacation. I want to bring them around." She was smiling throughout the conversation. He Li said, "Okay, since they came all the way here to see you, you should bring them around. How about this, I'll give you 2 days of leave. You can let go of your work a little. The city is so big, make more time to take your parents around for some sightseeing." "Thank you so much, manager." So-yoon was pleasantly surprised. Originally, she could only use the weekend off to bring her family around. With the manager's help, she could have more time with her parents. He Li smiled. "Silly child, you don't have to stand on ceremony with me." The longer she looked at this filial and sensible child, the more she liked her. Why was her stupid son so tasteless? At the dining table, He Li heard her son ask about So-yoon for the second time. He Li's mind operated quickly and she suddenly came up with an idea. She said, "Son, So-yoon's parents will be coming to Shanghai City to visit her soon. They will be vacationing for a few days here as well. So-yoon doesn't have a car. Her parents will be taking the high-speed rail over a long distance. They will be travel-worn and it's inconvenient without a car. They are a big family, they have to arrange for meals, accommodations and a tour guide to take them around a city. It's all very inconvenient without a car. So-yoon's family will be coming over tomorrow. How about this, son, take that big Benz of yours and fetch them from the high-speed rail station. After that, you can take them out for a meal, arrange their accommodation, and bring them around for some fun for a few days. Show your goodwill as a landlord." He Li looked at him. "Son, So-yoon had at least helped your mother to prepare the meals 2 times and washed some dishes. Can you help me with this little favor?" Suddenly, Chen Gang started coughing, almost choking on his rice. He looked at his wife doubtfully. "Your son is now worth billions, he's a famous public figure, a VIP in science and tech circles, yet you want him to fetch some ordinary peasants?" Of course, he did not say this out loud. He merely thought it in his mind. Moreover, he felt that with Chen Jin's personality, he probably would not go. However, he immediately heard something that surprised him. Chen Jin agreed, "Okay, Mom. I can fetch them in my car tomorrow." Lately, he was not busy at all. He stayed home nearly every day, he had so much free time. It was good to find something to do outside so that he could at least breathe in some fresh air. These days, Yuan Li did ask him out many times. She even sent him photos of herself in skimpy, revealing clothes in the guise of trying them out, asking if he liked the clothes. She said that she only wore them for him, that there was even better clothing, would he like to know more about those? However, Chen Jin replied saying that he was busy. He did quickly agree to Mom's request though. "Good, son. You've helped me with a huge favor." He Li was very pleased, grinning from ear to ear. The 18th of July was a Friday. It was 4:30 p.m., and there was still half an hour left until So-yoon clocked out. Sitting in her seat, she started to feel distracted. She had finished her work tasks a long time ago. Now, she was anxiously waiting to clock out. However, she did not dare to leave earlier. She was afraid of leaving a bad impression on her colleagues and the higher-ups, and people would gossip behind her back. She could only look at the time on her watch as each second and minute passed, feeling the time getting longer. She wanted to leave earlier because the traffic in the city would become congested after 5 p.m. She would be hit with peak congestion after she fetched her family from the rail station and returned to the city. Even if she called a cab, there was no guarantee that she could return to her dormitory by 8 p.m. Then, she would have to arrange for her parents to stay in the family-sized room in the dorm before she could finally rest. Finally, it was 5 p.m. on the dot. Turning off her computer, she hurried to the ground floor. Not even bothering to return to her dorm for a change of clothes, she planned to call a cab straight away and go to the high-speed rail station. At the ground floor of the tax bureau, she was the first to exit. Taking out her mobile phone, she prepared to call a cab. Just as she walked to the roadside, she heard a voice ringing out, "So-yoon." Turning her head, she was stumped. Him? What was he doing here? Chen Jin silently measured So-yoon. She was wearing a navy suit with a blue blouse and a red tie. On her head was a hat with a curled brim. There was a badge on the center of the hat. Her uniform also consisted of epaulets, shoulder badges, collar badges, chest emblems, buttons, and other accessories. A standard look for a tax officer. She had tied her hair back in a ponytail, looking very capable and skilled. Her image brightened one's eyes. Chen Jin said, "Get in my car, I'll take you to fetch your family." On the contrary, So-yoon was so shocked that she took a few steps back. Lowering her face, she shook her head. "No, that's not necessary. You're busy. I can call a cab to fetch them. My mom told me to come over and help. Stop dithering and get in the car." Chen Jin took 2 steps over and pulled her hand. He opened the door with the other hand and gently pushed her inside. After telling her to put on her seat belt, Chen Jin started the car. Sitting in the front passenger seat, So-yoon found it hard to breathe as her face heated up. Spotting this scene, Li Xiaolan, who was So-yoon's work partner, dorm mate, and good friend, was astonished. Since when did So-yoon get a boyfriend? In the tax bureau, standing at a window on the ground floor, Li gazed at the departing car. With a deep hooded look, she said in a low voice, "Little Su, you should be satisfied with the performance of my silly boy today." Chapter 155, The Generous Son-in-Law. Seeing that it was not the rush hour yet, Chen Jin drove a little faster. He wanted to get to the high-speed rail station on the western outskirts of the city before the traffic jam started. Beside him, So-yoon gently reminded, "Drive a little slower, pay more attention to safety. My family will only arrive on the train at 6 p.m. Chen Jin nodded and slightly slowed down his car. After about 30 minutes, they reached the high-speed rail station. He found a place nearby to park his car. The two of them walked into the rail station and stood to wait at the exit. So-yoon made a call. "Dad, Mom, you've arrived? There are still some minutes left." "Oh, okay. I'm waiting for you at the exit." From time to time, she would stand on her tiptoes and cast her expectant gaze at the movements on the other side of the gate. She could not help scanning the man beside her from the corner of her eyes. Her heartbeat sped up. When her family exited the gate, would they ask her what his relationship was with her? How should she explain? A friend? A colleague? She was feeling so anxious, yet the man was calmly playing a game on his mobile phone, with occasional glances at the gate. Suddenly, as he thought of something, Chen Jin put down his phone and walked towards the nearby vending machine. "I'll get some beverages." "Ah. No need for that now." So-yoon turned around with a yelp. A hubbub was building up behind her. There were passengers exiting the gate. She could not help but cast her gaze back to the crowd exiting the gate as she tried to find the faces of her family. After waiting for another 10 minutes, she heard the familiar cries. "Yoon. Sis. Sis. My Yoon." Finally, 4 familiar figures appeared at the gate. Their faces were filled with excitement. There was a middle-aged lady amongst them. From her features, one could faintly see the beauty that she had in her youth. Her appearance now was rather old, as laugh lines had been deeply etched onto her face. But, she had dressed meticulously in a modern kipao. Upon seeing her eldest daughter, her smile became wider and she positively glowed. Carrying a small black suitcase, a middle-aged man walked along with her. He had a fair appearance and seemed to be well maintained. He looked to be only in his 40s. However, his back was slightly stooped and he moved awkwardly. He wore a white shirt that brightened his appearance, with a pair of Western-style pants. Beside him was a young girl with features that were 60% similar to So-yoon's. She looked lovable and cute, wearing a pair of wide-legged jeans with suspenders, complemented with a pink shoulder bag and a pair of white running shoes. She looked extremely youthful and beautiful. At the outermost edge of the group was a teenager. Not only was he carrying a bucket backpack, but he was also hauling a Jinamao suitcase behind him. The main burden of this family's vacation was carried entirely by him. So-yoon waved energetically at them. "Dad, Mom, Tian, Xiaopeng, I'm here." The family rejoiced as they were united. Father So asked with a strange expression, "Yoon, why are fetching us in this outfit? Time was too tight. I came here without changing." "Sis, you have such an impressive air about you in this outfit, so pretty," said her younger sister, So Tian. "Not bad at all." Mother So took a silent measure of her daughter and said with satisfaction, "My Yun Yun, you've made something of yourself. Sis, I can carry this on my own. You don't have to help, okay, thanks sis." Her brother, So Zaipen, was the youngest in the family. He expressed thanks as So Yun took the rolling luggage from his hands. Chen Jin, who had been standing at the side, walked over to So Yun and passed a bag filled with beverages to her, saying, "I'll get the luggage, give these drinks to your parents." He pressed the bag of beverages into her hands and took the luggage from her. Very quickly, all eyes from the So family focused on him. Mother So was the first to recover. With a surprised yet happy expression on her face, she looked at her eldest daughter. "Yun Yun, could he be your boyfriend? You're almost 27. I've urged you more than 10 times, yet you've never taken any action. I never thought that you would find someone on your own. Good. Good. So Yun, you're so sensible." She clapped her hands and laughed in delight. Father Su nodded repeatedly. "This fellow is quite handsome. He's tall too. Daughter, you have good taste. Sis, you've sneakily brought me a brother-in-law without even introducing him. Aren't you too disloyal?" Su Tian rolled her eyes. Her sister was too much. She found a boyfriend but was acting like an adulterer by keeping quiet about him. The teenager, Su Zaipen, also rested his gaze on Chen Jin in silent measurement. I. It's not what you're imagining." Su Yun was at a loss. A blush spread over her face. She wanted to explain, but nothing came out. Her daughter's behavior only caused the smile on Mother Su's face to grow wider. She became more certain of the guess in her mind. Su Yun wanted to stamp her feet. Looking at the back of the man, she felt shy. Yet her feelings were more complicated than that. She also felt a heavy dose of inferiority, so much so that she could not gather the courage to pull him back and explain the situation to her parents on the spot. "I'll wait until he leaves, then I'll explain the situation to Dad and Mom, it's really not what they think." However, Su Yun realized that even though she wanted to explain, there was no chance to do so. Chen Jin's behavior was beyond her expectations. First, he drove all of them to the dorm. They put down their luggage and Su Yun changed into her everyday clothes. Chen Jin said, "Uncle, Auntie, I've booked a meal for us from my mobile phone. It's at a nearby seafood restaurant. The reviews are good. I've ordered 8 courses for us. You can add on the dishes you like later. Let's go for a meal first." "Okay, let's go for dinner. I'm really quite hungry." Su Tian, who had been calling him Brother Chen since they met, said straightforwardly, "Thank you, brother-in-law, for treating us to this meal." They arrived at the restaurant and finished the feast of delicious seafood. Chen Jin took out his phone and said, "Uncle, Auntie, the family room at So Yun's dorm is too lacking. I've found a nearby lodge and booked 3 guest rooms. You can stay there for a few days." Mother So said, "Little Chen, you're too extravagant. It's better to quickly ask for a refund and spend less. We can stay in the family-sized room in the dorm. The rooms can't be returned once they're booked. Just put up with it for a couple of days." "Okay." When they saw the so-called lodge. "Oh my god! What kind of lodge is that? It is clearly a 5-star grand hotel. A standard hotel room in the hotel cost $8,888 for one night. Xiao Chen had booked 3 luxurious suites for them. Moreover, they were booked for 3 days. Mother Su told him to quickly ask for a refund, it was really too extravagant. If it could not be refunded, could he discuss with the front desk about changing the 3 rooms to only 1 room? Booking 3 rooms was too excessive. "I really can't ask for a return. Auntie, just be at ease and stay here. I really didn't spend much at all." Mother So could not out-stubborn him, she could only sigh. "Young fellow, I know that you want to leave a good impression on us, but you can't be so extravagant. The future after this is long and there are many areas which require huge expenses. Let's take the example of a house. Have you bought one?" Chen Jin said after some thought, I have about 3 or 4. Her eyes widened and she was momentarily struck speechless. She let go of the burdens in her thoughts and happily stayed in the luxurious suite room of the 5-star hotel. For the following few days, every morning, Chen Jin would arrive at the lobby of the hotel at 8 am sharp. Then he would bring the Su family for breakfast before driving them around everywhere to have fun. For example, they went to the Bund to watch the sea, and took photos as a memento. And then they went to the Pearl of the Orient, with a viewing platform more than 300 meters above the ground. There, they enjoyed the beautiful night scenery of Shanghai and took in the bustle of the city. The next venue in their itinerary was an aquarium where they watched dolphins perform. In the underwater world, they enjoyed the sights of various marine creatures. They also went to Disneyland, the zoo, the museum. In these few days, the lot of them had visited all of the fun and interesting places that they could. Although the entire process was very tiring, So-Yun's family never felt that the time was wasted. Instead, they thought that they had received ample rewards. However, the one thing that left the deepest impression on the So family was not Shanghai's scenery but Chen Jin's generosity. He was generous to a shocking degree. Whenever they had to spend money, Chen Jin would rush to foot the bill. There were almost no occasions where they had to pay a single cent. He even brought them to the malls for shopping. They bought clothes, supplements, and tonics, as well as a bunch of other stuff. Mother Su asked her husband in private, "Old Su, the money that little Chen spent in this few days exceeded $30,000 for sure, right?" Father Su shook his head. $30,000? It's way more than $50,000. The cost of the latest Huayao phone for Tian was at least $10,000. The Jordan shoes that Xiao Peng bought was cost than $3,000. The clothes and tonics that he bought for us were no cheap imitations either. Mother Su was shocked. Ah! This is too generous. Return the money, we have to quickly return the money to him. What do we return? How would we return it? We've met such a generous son-in-law. What would he think if you return the items to him? Where in the world would our daughter meet a partner with such excellent qualities? Yes, yes. Old Su, you're right. The qualities of that fellow aren't bad. He's tall, well-mannered, and sensible. His background is good too. He totally matches up to our Yun. So, we won't be returning this stuff. But, we have to let him know that he can't spend so extravagantly the next time we come again. If not, we won't come anymore. Yet, we're about to become one family. I would have to give him a good talking to if he continues to spend money so carelessly. In the Su parents' discussions about their expectant son-in-law, Chen Jin, they came away feeling extremely pleased with him. Chapter 156, Trouble at Demi Technologies. On the 7th of July, Su Yun's parents, her sister Su Tian, and her brother Su Zipen, carried many things in their hands and entered the high-speed rail station. Goodbye. Bye sister, bye sister's husband. They reluctantly waved their hands and bided farewell to Su Yun and Chen Jin. Dad, Mom, you must take care. Tian, Xiao Peng, be sure to study hard, don't let Dad and Mom worry about you both. Su Yun exhorted them with red eyes as she arduously held her tears back. Dad, Mom, come again soon. Chen Jin waved his hand as well. After sending away Su Yun's family, Chen Jin once again drove Su Yun back to the tax bureau, thus ending the 4-day entertainment mission arranged by his mother. Unexpectedly, just as he parked his car at the dormitory located beside the tax bureau, a bank card was held in front of his eyes. This is my payroll card, there's $38,000 of savings in it. I know that this is not enough, I'll pay you back when I receive my wages for the next few months, only then can you return my payroll card to me, said the woman with a faint voice. Chen Jin's expression immediately became solemn. If you regard me as your friend, take back your card. Besides, am I lacking this little amount of money? Your parents came all the way from Shanghai and you are telling me not to express some sincerity? I'm going to get angry if you do this again. Chen Jin said while glancing at the woman. Okay, Chen Jin's fierce tone made Su Yun shrink back and pull her card back. She took her bag and got out of the car. Thanks then. I still have to work tomorrow, I'll take my leave. Hold on. Chen Jin stopped her. Give me your phone, I realized that I have added your parents and siblings on WeChat, but not you. Let's exchange contacts. It was only after not seeing Su Yun for half a month that Chen Jin realized that not only did he not have her number, but he had not even added her on WeChat, so he could not even say hi. He really did not want to forget about it this time around. Oh, okay. Su Yun's face blushed a little as she took out her phone from her bag and allowed Chen Jin to scan her QR code. I will be going now. He was now successfully on her friend list. Su Yun's face was gradually heating up. She quickly hastened her steps towards her dorm, giving people the impression that she was fleeing from someone. Looking at her beautiful back, Chen Jin smiled. A very wise and sensible girl. A family filled with positive vibes. Those were Chen Jin's major thoughts towards her family. Indeed, the Sus were not wealthy. Inversely, they were quite tight in financial terms. But looking at their family, there were no signs of stress, depression, or inferiority shown on their faces due to the short plight they had experienced. On the contrary, they were optimistic, positive, and striving to use both of their hands to combat the harshness in life and change their family's living condition. Su Yun, for instance, was admitted to the civil service soon after she graduated from a prestigious university. She was the only one that landed the position among thousands of competitors. Her sister Su Tiantian was enrolled in a second-tier university. However, she got herself a place in Zhongshan University as a postgraduate student. She would be in the second year of her postgraduate studies for the second half of the year, but many companies were already sending her offer letters for high-paying positions. Her future was brimming in light. Her younger brother Su Zipen was only 17 this year. He looked a little rebellious and both of his sisters doted on him a lot. But he did not receive any special treatments from his parents. Instead, he was frequently assigned to some heavy labor work, as a man. Not only could he not rely on both of his elder sisters, but he must carry more responsibility on his shoulders and burden himself with heavier tasks. Besides, with examples set ahead of him, he must surpass his sisters academically. Therefore, not only did Su Zipen become the family's main force in doing housework, but he was also one of the top students in his school in terms of academic performance. He was an outstanding person. In the second half of the year, he would be in his third year in high school and would be taking the college entry examination the following year. Chen Jin asked him which university he thought he could enter, and he confidently replied that enrolling into major universities would not be an issue. Chen Jin felt ashamed and covered his face. All right, a family of school tyrants. Summarizing the few days of interaction with the Sus, Chen Jin's biggest thoughts towards the family was that they possessed the correct outlook on the world, life, and values. Their family tradition was also superb. They could be described as a family filled with positive energy. The Sus left him with a favorable impression. A few quiet days had passed. Chen Jin, who was now well rested and adjusted, went to the office more frequently. However, on the 28th, he suddenly received an emergency call. The call was from Europe, and the caller was someone that he was very familiar with. It was the chairman of Demi Technologies, Lei Xiaojun. On the phone, Brother Lei said with a rushed yet helpless tone, "I'm done for, Brother Chen, your brother Lei is done for." Demi got in the eyes of Europe's anti-monopoly department. After investigation they affirmed that Demi is involved in monopolizing and they will be issuing us an extremely expensive ticket. Monopolizing? Chen Jin was confused as he asked, what did Demi Technologies monopolize? Which product manufactured by your company is capable of monopolizing? Is it that your company released a high-tech product that was really good that wasn't available on the market? His words were a little discrediting. But judging from the products made by Demi Technologies, most of their products were mature products, almost none of them were original creations. They also did not have a good grasp on core technologies. Essentially, they were excellent machine manufacturers. Their success could only be credited to their high product quality and cost effectiveness, which ultimately made them popular among consumers. Lei Xiaojun smiled bitterly and said, "Brother Chen, what you said stung me, your brother's heart. You are the sole reason that the phrase 'let them eat cake' exists. Have you forgotten about the Love Me cleaning robots?" The product had gone wild in M-City. The first generation of Love Me robots sold over 15 million units over the past 6 months, the second generation, which is even more advanced, sold 25 million units. Adding up the markets in other regions, total sales for both generations of the Love Me robots is over 50 million units. Twice the amount compared to the WA robot in local markets. Brother Chen, I was still laughing at you for being silly some time ago. The money you can earn selling the Love Me robots in foreign markets are way higher than that in local markets. You do not know how easy it is to earn money from foreigners. In fact, the foreigners have way more money. It's a pity that you gave up this market. But now. Lei Xiaojun shook his head and said, "I will not laugh at you anymore, Brother Chen. Your considerations are right, and your actions are absolutely correct. The Love Me robots are getting too much money, and there are no similar products overseas that can compete with it. The entire market for cleaning robots is dominated by the Love Me robot. Now, Europe's anti-monopoly department ruled it as a de facto monopoly and will be issuing us a ticket. His voice was deeply exhausted. I flew to Paris and negotiated with the anti-monopoly department for 8 days and attended 3 questioning sessions, but it was all futile. They will not reduce the amount on the ticket by even a single cent. Besides, over there at the M Nation, some departments are currently investigating the Love Me robot on suspicion of violating user privacy. The troubles that Demi are about to face have only just begun. Chen Jin, on the other hand, asked with concern, how much is the ticket issued by the anti-monopoly department? $7.5 billion. Chapter 157, Brother Lei's helplessness. Brother Lei explained the specific situation to him. The person in charge from the EU's anti-monopoly department that targeted Demi Technologies, and the one who decided to issue a ticket to them, was a woman named Margaret Vestager. She had been an anti-monopoly commissioner of the EU since 2004. In the beginning, nobody paid attention to her, who was a member of the weaker sex. However, within just a few short years, this old lady had many moguls in Silicon Valley knocked out with her very own hands. At the very beginning, when she had just entered the office, she had her sights set on Google and conducted anti-monopoly investigations towards the company. But for tech giants like Google, they had countless connections everywhere and they were deeply aware of the methods to deal with the governments of various countries. If people sued them for monopolizing, they could, in return, smack a hat of economic pressure on them. Anybody could imagine the sheer difficulty to force giants like them into submission. But progressions on the case left everybody jaw-dropped. After 6 months of investigation efforts, Margaret, who had solid proof in her hands, issued them a ticket amounting $54 billion, accounting for 10% of Google's annual income for that specific year. The higher-ups in Google had no choice but to concede and pay the fine. The hearts of Google's shareholders were bleeding. It was literally even more painful than to cut through their own flesh. They hated Margaret, that old witch. After she ruthlessly stabbed a knife in Google, Margaret turned her head towards another giant. Fruit Incorporation. Not long after, a super ticket of $110 billion was issued, causing an uproar in the tech community. Fruit Incorporated struggled relentlessly. The company's CEO traveled to the EU to negotiate many times, but to no avail. At last, they still helplessly paid the fine to settle things. Subsequently, she continued her efforts. Margaret, whose combat power was getting stronger and stronger, successively swept through Amazon, Facebook, Jiaotong, and other tech giants. The accumulated fine was over a staggering $380 billion. Legend said that there was no fine that Margaret could not issue, only companies that she was too lazy to look at. It could be said that the tech moguls hated her to the bone, but the civilians in Europe loved her to the maximum. They revered her as the pioneer of anti-monopolism, or Iron Lady, and made her their idol. This time, Margaret had her eyes on Demi Technologies. With a $7.5 billion fine, it was obvious that in the eyes of this old lady, she already classified Demi Technologies as a tech giant on the same tier as Google and Fruit. Why? Our product is so fine, and it provided so many benefits for people, why are they punishing us for doing well? The lobbyists that Demi Technologies hired strived their best to argue, expressing that this was not fair. It's not wrong for you to do very well, but it affects the others from doing better. Your Love Me robots have occupied 99% of the market, and therefore other companies are unable to develop, causing consumers to lose even more product choices. This is an absolute bane towards the consumers. We must stop any kind of monopolization from happening, said Margaret sensibly. The lobbyist from Demi Technologies was left speechless. He was totally bested by her logic. Was it wrong for me to make something good? Must everyone be equals? It's a $7.5 billion fine, Brother Lei, have you decided to pay it or not? Chen Jin asked after he understood the whole situation. Lei Xiaojun was startled for a moment. That old witch Margaret is very shrewd. The Love Me robot sold more than 25 million units in the European market. The profit was $2,000 per unit, so the total profit was about 50 billion. Their demands were for us to pay the fine within 2 years' time, and within that time period, we probably won't get another ticket. If we were to pay the fine and the Love Me robot sell another few 10 million units, Demi Technologies could still earn some money. Brother Lei, can you please have some aspiration? Chen Jin shook his head and said, 7.5 billion, isn't this equivalent to Demi's net profit for 2 whole years? Do you know there's nothing you can't do with this money? If you keep the money, you won't be able to spend all of it even in a few lifetimes. If I were you, I wouldn't pay even a single cent. I would exit the EU market directly. What kind of hell is that place? Can you even do business there? That is what I thought. But the sales channel that Demi established in the EU wasn't just the Love Me robot. Cell phones, televisions, rice cookers, air purifiers, we sell all these products. After the Love Me robot became popular in Europe, sales also increased for Demi's ecological chain of products and brought up a bunch of Me fans. The popularity of Demi in Europe is nothing less than that in Z. So, you intend to pay the $7.5 billion fine? Chen Jin rolled his eyes. I can only give in this time. Besides, Margaret will be resigning soon. There shouldn't be any more problems occurring after this ticket. Will it be fine after Margaret resigns? Do you think this is good? Are you aware that a new broom sweeps clean? What if the new anti-monopoly commissioner was someone even greedier than Margaret that skips the ticket issuing part and directly cracks down on Demi? The moguls in Silicon Valley will be accused all at once. Do you think that they would have mercy towards Z Nation's Demi Technologies? Chen Jin told him his analysis. Cold sweat dripped down from Lei Xiaojun's face. There was a chance that Chen Jin's guess might actually happen. But exiting the European market just like that was impossible. By now, the EU market had become Demi Technologies' primary market. Nobody would forsake their most profitable market just because of mere guesses. Demi's shareholders would not agree on it either. Therefore, not only did Demi have to disclose this, they still had to face the unknown future. Aside from a few words of consolation, Chen Jin expressed his powerlessness. On the patent fee of $250 per Love Me second gen sold, never would he reduce it out of sympathy. Xinghai Technologies had no business in Europe. No matter how big of a fine Demi had to pay, it would not affect Xinghai Technologies even by a tiny bit. On the 29th of July, the EU's anti-monopoly department disclosed the punishment towards Demi Technologies. The Love Me robot constituted monopolization in the cleaning robot market, severely upsetting fair competition. The total fine was $7.5 billion. Once this news was announced, it caused an outburst on the internet. The netizens in M Nation were jubilant. Beautifully done. Margaret, I love you. I think that this company should have been punished way earlier. Although I really like the Love Me robot, sorry, the people from Z are earning too much from us, this is unfair. The Z Nation's internet exploded as well, but in a different way. The netizens were all furious. It is wrong to do well, but okay if everybody sucks together? What kind of logic is this? $7.5 billion, Chinasat also got fined $3 billion by M Nation's Ministry of Commerce. This is double that amount. Do they think that companies from Z Nation are all sheep and pigs that should all be slaughtered? Brother Lei, exit the EU market. If you can't get money from the foreigners then get it from us, we'll buy Demi's products. The EU is fining our companies, why are we not fining theirs? What are the related departments doing? The internet was filled with all kinds of heated discussions. The netizens were enraged, and all of them threatened to retaliate. However, Demi Technologies, who was the center of the topic, kept silent. Even if there was innumerable support from the netizens, they did not dare to make any comments, fearing that they might cause an even bigger dispute. Mr. Chen, your decision to not expand overseas was too wise. This $7.5 billion fine is too ugly to watch. Previously, I didn't quite understand the boss's actions. Only now do I realize that all of these were in the boss's predictions. We are all clouded by the little amount of benefits presented before our eyes. Actually, you would have known after Huayao was completely squeezed out from M country's market. In the high-tech field, the Westerners will hold us back using any means. If Xinghai Technologies is to become a giant like Huayao in the future, the pressure we'll receive will only increase, as well as the fine. I don't think that it will necessarily happen. The foreigners will definitely impose restrictions on the WA robot, but for the little star learning machine, definitely not. This is an important weapon for a country, it is something that will increase a nation's competitivity, they might even beg us to sell it to their country. The genuinely good stuff will make them realize that it will be a dumb move to restrict it and that closing themselves up will only do them harm. But, why should we sell such a good product as our little star learning machine to them, said CEO Ling Dongjun. At that moment, the Western thinking block in his brain had basically vanished. His thinking was completely in sync with his boss. Having gone through a period of craziness and understanding the might of the smart learning program, the inside of his heart swelled. He was no longer admiring the West. The collective transformation of the executive personnel made Chen Jin nod his head continuously. Indeed, money was very important, but so was dignity. If people were to throw away their dignity for the sake of money, they would not be happy no matter how much money they made. This corresponded to the motto he established for Shanghai Technologies: have dignity, confidence, believe in your own work, and you can make the world a better place. Chapter 158, Proposing the Absolute Wages Concept. Shanghai Technologies consecutively launched 2 hot-selling products and squeezed themselves into the ranks of the top 500 domestic enterprises after being established for only more than 1 year. Not only did Shanghai Technologies, a company that had risen with a phenomenal speed, become the celebrity among companies on the internet, but they also became the media's favorite. There were innumerable media groups who requested to interview Shanghai Technologies. Economy Watcher, Business Weekly, Era of Wealth, Eastern Economics, and up to 100 other financial magazines wished to interview Shanghai Technologies' CEO Ling Dongjun and the founder, Chen Jin. But almost all of the interview request applications were rejected. Only those with bigger influence, like Phoenix Television and Shanghai's local broadcasting company Southeast Television, interviewed CEO Ling Dongjun. They produced 2 seasons of a TV program which had significantly risen more than 50% in viewership ratings. This made the media more eager to interview Shanghai Technologies founder Chen Jin. A billionaire at the age of 26, receiving no help from his parents, establishing an admirable career only with his own efforts, and creating 2 products that could change the world. This was a fantasy. How amazing and inspiring could this be? How many youngsters would idolize this young billionaire and make him their goal? How explosive would the viewership ratings be for an episode of this young man's interview? Too bad that this young entrepreneur was very low-key in his actions. All the interview applications from the mass media got declined. However, after one broadcasting media company requested to interview Chen Jin, he did not ask his men to reject them this time. On the contrary, he nodded and agreed. Z Television Network. Z Television Network's News 1+1 television program had a very big influence with a lot of static audiences. If he rejected the request for this TV program, it would show that he had no understanding of the times. Besides, for the program that News 1+1 wanted to do, on the surface, it would be recollecting the development history of Shanghai Technologies, introducing this company's brilliant achievements, exploring the journey of the young founder, and celebrating the young tech company that was soaring upwards. The real purpose was because of the Demi incident where Demi Technologies got heavily fined at the EU and was under investigation by nation's National Security Department. They hoped to touch on issues through interviewing Shanghai Technologies, such as discussing the future direction of Z nation's high-tech enterprises and probing how to tackle restrictions and other similar issues. The program took place inside the interview room. Hello, my name is Qing Wei, it's my pleasure to interview you. I never thought that you'd be so young. The reporter from the Z Television Network was pretty and intellectual. She had a sweet smile, captivating short hair, she looked well dressed in her skirt, and she had an appealing voice. Hello, it's nice to meet you too. Chen Jin, who was wearing a branded posh tuxedo, shook hands with her. The interview session officially commenced. In the first half of the interview session, the main conversation was Shanghai Technologies' development history. She asked Chen Jin many questions. Why did you think of making cleaning robots? What are some of the difficulties that you have encountered? Why did you insist on developing the intelligent learning machine when no one was sure about it? Lastly, was it within your expectations that both of these products achieved such great success? Chen Jin answered all of the questions according to the documents he had prepared beforehand. His speech was fluent, and he answered the questions with a clear mind. He even gave some very professional technical details that balled up Qing Wei. She didn't quite get it, but she thought that it was awesome and could only lift her thumb and say, impressive, very impressive indeed. You asked whether it was within my expectations to achieve success? Sorry, but since the very beginning, I already believed that it would achieve success. All of my thousand-some staff in the technical department also believed that we would achieve success. All of Shanghai Technologies staff that are striving silently strongly believe that their work will change our nation and the world. Impressive, very impressive. Qing Wei's eyes glowed in splendor. An expression of pure adoration was on her face. Finally changing topics, Qing Wei asked, Mr. Chen, what are your thoughts on the Demi incident that has been viral on online forums for the past few days? With a hefty $7.5 billion fine that thrashed DeMe Technologies, how do you think it will affect the Z Nation's enterprise's plans of expanding overseas in the long term? Does Shanghai Technologies have plans to go overseas in the future? Chen Jin shrugged his shoulders and said, honestly speaking, I'm not interested in the Western market. Shanghai Technologies will not enter the Western market, and of course, we will not linger around the thought of it. Using what Hua Yao said, sometimes, by letting go, you will feel relaxed, only then can you focus more on what you're doing. Shanghai Technologies is such a focused company. In private, Mr. Lei and I are very good friends. There are also some technical correlations between the Love Me robot and the WA robot. On what DeMe is going through now, not only do I want to express my deepest compassion and concern, I would also like to express my great indignation on this matter. This kind of ridiculous punishment is not valid. It's illogical and is an out-and-out suppression and discrimination. I want to warn the EU over here, revoke the punishment immediately. If you really find DeMe $7.5 billion, in the near future, you will split all the money out and return every single cent to DeMe. If this drags on, you will have to add on interest as well. If you refuse to believe my words, we'll see. Qingwei and the assistant staff looked at each other. This was not listed in the interview questions. They never expected Mr. Chen to react so aggressively. Qingwei looked at the director behind the camera. The director nodded his head lightly. They could remove this section during the editing session later on. After they talked about the importance of core technologies, the interview basically came to its end. Towards the end of the interview, Qingwei asked him jokingly, Mr. Chen, rumors say that Shanghai Technologies staff treatment is very good. Statistics provided by some institutions say that your company's salary is already almost on Hua Yao's level. Is your company lacking on people? Even I want to join your company. Yes, Shanghai Technologies desperately needs people now. We are now mass recruiting talents of different kinds. Chen Jin sat upright and said facing the camera, my friends from all over, Shanghai Technologies will be establishing 28 R&D divisions all across every province in the country. We will be recruiting tens of thousands of different people to conquer various core technologies for the Z Nation. Please do not worry about staff treatment, Shanghai Technologies is implementing the absolute wages standard. After deducting your expenses on accommodation, meal, travel, tax, and insurance, the net salary that you will receive at the end will not be lower than a specific amount. No matter the job post, for example, interns will not receive a pay less than $3,000. For junior staff, $5,000, intermediate staff, $10,000, and for senior staff, not less than $30,000, and there are also other welfare treatments as well. I sincerely invite all of you talented individuals to join us. Seizing the opportunity in this interview, Chen Jin actually pulled off an advertisement for Shanghai Technologies. He walked to the director beside the camera and said, you can delete anything else, but not this part. The director, who was middle-aged, smiled and assured him that this part would definitely stay. Both sides exchanged handshakes and the joyous interview ended. At 9 p.m. on the 31st, after Z Television Network's News 1+1 program aired the interview with Shanghai Technologies founder Chen Jin, they attracted great attention from the audience. The program's viewership reached its greatest high in 3 years. Although much content was removed from the interview, the way the young chairman publicized himself and his confidence left him a deep impression in the audience. His sentence, I'm not interested in the Western market, made innumerable netizens call him out for his act of dominance. It was also then listed in Shanghai quotes. The concept of absolute wages that the young chairman came out with at the end of the interview almost caused a storm, immediately drawing discussions from the entire field of economy and the mass public. It became the hottest topic for the mass population of netizens, sweeping through the whole internet. Chapter 159, Entering Many Fields. For the mass population of office workers, in terms of salary, they would never be content, no matter how high pay was. Everyone's pursuit was in consideration of the higher the better, and the pursuit never ended. After Shanghai Technologies' absolute wages standard was proposed, the office workers calculated their absolute wage according to the standards. Then, they all expressed the pricks on their hearts. My intern salary was $5,000. Deducting rent, food, transport, phone, and other expenses, my absolute wage is only $1,500. Damn, my salary is $8,000 on paper, but deducting all those miscellaneous expenses, my absolute wage is $2,800, even less than an intern at Shanghai Technologies. Simply upsetting. I've been working for 5 years. Originally I was quite content with my $12,000 monthly salary. But after deduction according to absolute wage calculations, the actual amount that I could use freely was not even $5,000, even less than a junior staff at High Technologies. I have a monthly salary of $20,000 in a first-tier city. But my absolute wage is only $6,000. I'm done, I'm quitting. With my life, I worked for my boss for 2 years, and I can't even earn a single cent. My boss's plea ain't making me stay, I'm going to High Technologies. Innumerable netizens said that they wanted to resign and go be an intern at High Technologies. There were also countless entrepreneurs and bosses that strongly criticized High Technologies. According to this calculation of High Technologies, if it was in first-tier cities in Shanghai, King City, Shenzhen City, and Yang City, the actual expense of an enterprise will exceed $8,000 to provide an absolute wage of $3,000. This is over the death line for many companies. If they all follow this standard, more than half of the SMEs will perish. Easier said than done. You, High Technologies, are rich, of course you can afford to be generous, but have you ever considered the life and death of the others? Various expenses are already making us breathless. This absolute wage concept you came up with is literally stabbing a knife on our already fragile body. Your intention is to kill us. High Technologies. Please do not simply introduce new concepts, you'll kill people. Huayao will be abolishing the original salary calculation system and adopt the absolute wages system. As of current times, staff at Huayao have an average absolute wage of $28,400, the top within the country. Sincerely welcoming all talent to join us. Ali Corporation will also be adopting the absolute wages system. Our standards will be similar to that of High Technologies. Even for a new intern, their absolute wage will not be less than $3,000. This will definitely increase our business expenditures, but only by doing so, every staff that joins our big family can have a true sense of acquisition. Baidu Incorporated. The SMEs were all condemning High Technologies. But the tech giants within the country all followed the heatwave. They announced that they were in line with High Technologies and would be adopting the absolute wages standard. There was even a man that created a corporate competitiveness ranking list based on his knowledge of the different zones within the country and the wage level of various enterprises. The rankings were not based on the size of an enterprise and their popularity, but on the average absolute wage that staff were receiving. The list went down from high to low and made everything crystal clear. In the upshot, the mass population of netizens discovered that many of the well-known large enterprises within the country were either not in the list or ranked at the very bottom. It was simply unbelievable. The netizens said, "Don't look at things other than this competitiveness ranking list when finding a job. If you are finding a job, go for the companies with high absolute wage." The proposal of the absolute wage concept thrust High Technologies into the teeth of the storm as they were subjected to mixed opinions from both ends. It also played a good effect in advertising. High Technologies' blueprint of their future expansions was also pellucidly presented before the eyes of the public. It was eye-catching. In each province across the whole country, they would build 28 R&D divisions and recruit several 10,000s of talents of all kinds. Preparing to enter 11 key fields they were: chip design, design a better CPU, design an AI chip with better performance. Chip manufacturing, commence research on chip manufacturing. Supercomputer, prepare to develop own supercomputer, save cost on the procurement of supercomputers. New material, the main research direction will be graphene and nanomaterials. New energy source, commence R&D in the battery field. Biomedicine, commence R&D on terminal, difficult, and complicated illnesses. Commit efforts into healthcare. High-end medical equipment, this was a $1 trillion market, which was currently dominated by foreign companies. Domestically produced operating system, prepare to create own operating system, build own ecosystem of software. Industrial software, develop domestic industrial software. Improve domestic industrial manufacturing capacity. Artificial intelligence, this was the strong point of High Technologies, but it still needed to be further developed. Household robots, this was also the strong point of High Technologies. It also needed to be further developed. Thus, the new efforts totaled 11 fields. All of them were high-tech fields. The threshold for each field was extremely high. A large number of funds must be injected, and only after a long development cycle could they expect a return. The risk involved could be described as incredibly high. Speaking in terms of fund injections, for 28 R&D divisions, the construction cost for each R&D center would be at least $3 billion on average. Multiplying the amount by 28, it would be $84 billion. And this only accounts for the hardware facility. They would have to put in more investments subsequently. At the current time, Shanghai Technologies had ample cash flow, they would not even have a strain on their budget if it were to be $10 billion. But for an amount exceeding 80 billion, Shanghai Technologies did not have that many assets at the present time. What would they do if money was not enough? The only thing to do was apply for bank loans. As a high-tech company with zero debt, prominent profitability, and each asset possessing unlimited potential value, it would not be necessary for Shanghai Technologies to send their personnel to negotiate with the bank. In fact, there were some banks that took initiative to come to Shanghai Technologies and inquire with them as to whether they needed a loan for the sake of their own business. Chen Jin opted for the Industrial and Commercial Bank of Z, which had a favorable interest rate, and got a loan guarantee of 50 billion. He could use this fund anytime for his corporate expansion. Even so, because of all 11 fields that Crossing High Technologies prepared to enter, most of them were in the high input and high risk region, in which it might bear no fruit even with a $10 billion fund injection into their project. This drew a long line of questioning. First is chip design, and now, they even dare step foot in chip manufacturing? That's some courage they plucked up there. If they could yield results without putting in a few 10 billions, I'll admit that I lost. Domestic OS? Their own ecosystem of software? Are you dreaming Shanghai Technologies? How many domestic OSs that proclaimed themselves as independent intellectual property popped up over these years and ended up being complete rip-offs? How independent could it really be? How much market could it occupy? Never thought that Shanghai would not wake up yet. They want to jinx themselves again. You people should be saving money and putting it in the things you are good at. I was always positive about Shanghai Technologies developments. But this time, this is too big of a step and the consequences will not be as simple as just pulling back. This is literally scattering nets at a place with no fish. This is a complete waste of energy and resources. Indeed, they are squandering to the highest extreme. Among the tech community and online forums, most people were having doubts about Shanghai Technologies' development plan. There were also people that criticized Shanghai Technologies as someone who was rich but dumb. Even the higher executives of Shanghai Technologies had a certain amount of doubt towards their young chairman's expansion blueprint. They were not very optimistic on a few of the projects. But after being proven wrong many times, they learned their lesson and did not express their doubts directly to Chen Jin. Instead, they said euphemistically, "Mr. Chen, we have so many projects at hand. If half of them achieved success, it will already be a great success. Even a third will be considered good enough. Isn't our scheme a little too broad? Why don't we first focus on a few projects that we are confident in? Half of them." Chen Jin shook his head as he smiled. "You people are really looking down on your own company. If only half succeeded, it would be considered a failure for Shanghai Technologies. Don't say that our scheme is too broad, either. With Shanghai Technologies' profitability, making our scheme wider won't matter. The more we spend in more places, the better it is for us. Keeping so much cash flow at hand is what Scrooges do. Besides, we still have to pay corporate income tax. So instead, why don't we use them all in investments and create more cakes with the money? To be a tech giant, we must have plenty of product lines, and the pool of our intellectual property must be deep enough as well. Therefore, we still have to continue expanding." Yet. What Mr. Chen said is not wrong. Indeed, we cannot stay in our comfort zone. Our goal is to become a tech giant. All the high executives nodded their heads. Motivation flowed through their veins as they were filled with boundless pride and enthusiasm. Chapter 160, with core technology at hand. Wang Chuanlong was full of himself lately. Wherever he went, he was smiling. He went to many dinners and talks, and received numerable awards on stage. Not only had he regained the 20 kilograms of weight that he had lost due to the strain of producing the mechanical joints, but he had also gained an additional 10 kilograms. His face became round and his stomach was protruded. When he lowered his head, his chin would become too. A specific person had already started asking him to lose weight. But he was in glee. He would lose weight whenever he felt like doing so, and that person could do nothing to him. Now at home, I will have the final say. When he showed a little sign of rebellion and was unwilling to obey in front of that person, however, it did not go well. Wang Chuanlong. Roll to the living room, don't even think of getting into my bed for 3 days. The furious tigress immediately quashed his rebellion. Wifey, I was wrong. I was completely wrong. Wang Chuanlong begged for mercy immediately. But he still had to gloomily roll to the living room and obediently sleep on the sofa for 3 days. A big boss that had several $billion of net worth was actually disciplined to be very subservient. It could be seen that his wife, Zhang Yajin, was very capable of subduing her husband. She completely broke Wang Chuanlong's fantasy that went, as long as I earn more money than my wife, I can have the final say at home. He could never forget the day when Bai Long Company's mechanical joints were successfully put into mass production. It was expected to bring him $1 billion of annual income, which was literally like a mountain of gold that would never deplete. So, he rushed back home in jubilance and told his wife, "My wife, I have done it, I have succeeded. In the future, your husband's earning capabilities will be 10 times above you. I have won, you can't have a say over me now." Zhang Yajin gave him a cold glare, pointed her finger towards the kitchen and said, "Have your wings hardened after 2 months away from home? Go do the dishes." Hey! Wang Chuanlong spaced out at the moment, but he could only obey, and so he went to do the dishes. Later on, his wife realized how significant the mechanical joints were to the Z nation's industrial field. He expressed that it was a colossal market worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Zhang Yajin only rolled her eyes and said nothing. A month later, Wang Chuanlong went on news series. This TV program had the highest viewership ratings in the country, and it advertised Bai Long Company big time. Wang Chuanlong had almost 3 minutes of screen time during the program. Because Wang Chuanlong joined the party, and as the star representative of the party, his exemplary deeds were widely spread. Within the country's perimeters, he attended dozens of seminars and he was very familiar with his memorized speech. Presently, Bai Long Company was listed as one of the most important private tech enterprises. The state had allocated a total of $10 billion to support the development of this enterprise. A few months ago, due to their product passing quality check, Bai Long acquired a contract with the space agency and gained orders from many military enterprises. The mechanical joints manufactured by Bai Long Company had to go to space and to war. They became an important supplier to the field of national defense. All of the achievements above made Wang Chuanlong look forward to the response on his wife's face. Even a smear of adoration would be nice. But as for the results, it was still a disappointment. However, Wang Chuanlong did not dare to grouse because his wife gave him a lot of help for him to achieve his current accomplishments. In other words, without his wife's support, he would not be where he was now. When he was young, he was very poor. Aside from having some talents, every part of him was not worthy of Zhang Yajin, who was pretty, ladylike, and born with a silver spoon in her mouth. They received a lot of opposition when they got together. To be with him, Zhang Yajin even threatened to sever her ties with her family. Later, he went overseas to study and came back to set up a factory with his wife's financial support. He had encountered many crises, and it was his wife that helped him through the storm. It was fair to say that she was his sugar mommy. Now that he had some achievements, Zhang Yajin never praised him to his face. But, his daughter Ying Ying secretly told him that her mom called grandfather and spoke very highly of him. Grandfather asked them to visit him at Treasure Island at the end of the year. Hearing this, Wang Chuanlong was stunned. After a while, he sighed and whispered, "What more can I ask from such a wife?" He then remembered that they were married for more than 20 years. They had been through ups and downs. He had many words to say to his wife that was always by his side supporting him. He planned to give her a valuable and meaningful present. Lingfeng Jingmi Company will be listing soon. According to assessments from professional institutions, its market value is approximately around $10 billion. I hold 65% of the shares. When shares go up after listing, the value of the shares I hold may exceed 10 billion, she will definitely be touched by this present, right? On the 10th of August, the gong rang out. Dong! Along with the sound of the gong, Lingfeng Jingmi Company was officially listed at the Stock Exchange Center in Shanghai. The issue price was $20 per share and a total of 500 million shares were issued. On the day of listing, the market was generally optimistic and stock buyers were all buying their share. Stock price significantly rose by 10% and reached the daily limit. On the second trading day, the daily limit was reached shortly after its opening. The third trading day began with a slight drip and rebounded by noon. The net increase of stock price was 6.5%. After being listed for just 3 days, Lingfeng Jingmi Company's market value was closing in on the $13 billion mark. The total increase was almost 30%. According to the calculations on the latest stock price and the shares held by Wang Xuanlong, his net worth exceeded $8 billion. It was just a matter of time for it to break the 10 billion mark. As a friend and business partner, Chen Jin called Wang Xuanlong to congratulate him. "Mr. Wang, congratulations, you are almost a billionaire." "Ha ha ha ha." Wang Xuanlong laughed. "It was all because of you, Mr. Chen, for letting a firm like us grow on such a big tree as Xinghai Technologies. Without the orders from the WA robot, not to even mention being listed, even a market value of 1 billion will be considered good enough." What he said was not a platitude. For example, after Zhong Xin International, who had deeper ties with Xinghai Technologies, got Xinghai's hundreds of millions of chip orders, their stock price had skyrocketed, and their market value had already broken through the $100 billion mark. Some companies or institution that pulled out their investments from Zhong Xin International had experienced great loss. As Xinghai Technologies' business partner, the stock buyers were naturally positive about Lingfeng Jingmi's future developments. It was certain that this electronic foundry would grow exponentially in the future. It was inevitable for Wang Xuanlong's net worth to pierce the 10 billion mark. However, he stated that all the shares in his possession were placed in a foundation that was established under the name of his wife. The beneficiary for the income generated by the value of these stocks and annual production was his wife. He considered it as repaying his wife for her support through all these years. "That night, my wife secretly cried. I saw it, but I'm not going to tell her, he, Wang Xuanlong said out of self-content. After showing off his relationship with his wife, Wang Xuanlong asked, "Speaking of which, Mr. Chen, will your Xinghai Technologies be listed in the future? I think that with your company's potential, its market value might exceed $1 trillion. With the shares you hold, you will be a billionaire in no time or even the richest man in the country. Are you considering listing your company?" "Nope." Chen Jin shook his head. "I have no plans to get my company listed." "Mr. Chen, do you know how many people will be red-eyed if you don't get your company listed? Do you know how many forces will be drawn against you? Xinghai Technologies' profitability is too high. If you don't give out some for the others by selling some stock, you will draw lots of hatred and jealousy from the public." "Hatred and jealousy? They have cash in their hands, while I have my core technology. As for which is more valuable, I bet everyone knows. Mr. Wang, will you get by long listed?" No. Exactly. Core technology was priceless, and not under the control of capitalism. With money, people could do anything they wanted to, but with core technology at hand, the benefits were even greater.